Members, I call the meeting to order since we have a quorum. The meeting starts now. First, we'd like to ask members to confirm the minutes of a meeting held on the 16th of October. That's LC paper number CB 162/12-13. The clerk has not received any proposed amendments to that set of minutes. If members have no other comments, let us confirm the minutes. Any comments? If not, I'd like to thank you for confirming the minutes. Since the last meeting held on the 16th of October 2012, members have received 2 information papers. The details are in the agenda. Members, any comments on those information papers? If not, we can go into the next agenda item. Items for discussion at the next meeting. The next meeting will be held on the 27th of November 2012, a Tuesday at 2:30 in the afternoon. The administration has proposed to discuss 2 items. Number 1, PWP item number 111KA, Kwun Tong Sanitary Development, additional medical and health services facilities, which are GIC and community facilities. And number 2, PWP item number 163TB, provision of grade separated pedestrian linkages to the Kwun Tong Sanitary Development, Yutwa Street pedestrian linkage. Members, would you like to propose any other items? And also, I have received 2 letters before the meeting today, one from Mr. Kenneth Chan and the other one from Dr. Ka-lok, which are related to the discovery of heritage sites at Harcourt Garden. Those letters are tabled for your information, and Dr. Ka-lok is proposing that this panel hold a discussion on this matter ASAP, and Mr. Kenneth Chan would also like to discuss an item related to the excluded land outside country parks. What are your views, members? Dr. Ka-lok, Chairman. I believe members have read my letter. I think you have read from newspapers that at the Admiralty Shatin Central Link site, there is a heritage site. I'd like to have a special meeting on this. As you know, on a daily basis, works are getting underway, and if there are any historical remains or monumental remains, I believe we'd like to hear from the relevant authorities, including MTRCL, government departments, and the AMO, on such discovery at Harcourt Garden. My worry is, between now and the next meeting, which is about a month away, since this is a suspected heritage site, I don't know whether the MTRCL would do further damage. If it is not a heritage site, it's all right, Chairman, because at the next meeting we can still have a discussion on it. However, if works are underway and they are doing explosive or blasting works there every day, I believe the administration should give us an account here at LegCo ASAP. As I said, on the 27th of November, we are going to have the regular meeting, and there are only 2 items. If it is just a matter of 4 weeks, would you like to include this as a 3rd item for the next meeting? I believe we can add this item to the next meeting, which originally should finish within 2 hours. Members, we agree. Any objection? If not, I include it in the agenda of the next meeting, which is a about Harcourt Garden. Chairman, I don't exactly object to what you're proposing, but later on the Secretary for Development will join us. We can very well ask him whether he has any response here and now. If he says there will not be further damage to the heritage site, then it's all right. But if he should tell us that damage is being done on a daily basis, then I believe we should attend to it ASAP, because we never know what the works are going to do to this site. Okay. We can ask him that question when he comes in. I'd like also to remind members that this panel and the housing panel will hold a joint meeting on the 9th of November 2012, Friday, from 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. to discuss the series of short and medium-term measures released by the CE on the 30th of August 2012 on housing and the supply of land. That is going to be a special meeting. Two panels will hold a joint meeting. Please take note of that. Is it the 9th? Yes. Because we were told it would be on the 2nd. Yes, it has been changed. It has been postponed to the 9th. Yes, I replied that I would come on the 2nd. Well, anyway, if there are no other comments, we can go into the next agenda item. Item 5. Northeast New Territories, New Development Areas, Planning and Engineering Study. I'll ask the administration team to come in now. At the same time, I have to declare here that with regard to items 5 and 6, the areas involved, including NE, NT, and also Hang Yun Wai, I own land in those areas.
唔知，係有。唔該晒。首先我
Thank you for coming. I'd like to welcome administration representatives. The name list has been tabled. I will not be introducing the officials one by one. I'd like to take the opportunity here to remind the administration that you should submit discussion papers 5 clear days before the meeting, so members will have enough time or sufficient time to read the papers. I hope the administration has heard me. Now I'd like to ask the administration representatives to walk us through this item. I understand that they are going to use a PowerPoint presentation to take us through this item. Over to you, the administration. Dr. K.K. Kwok, can I please take the opportunity to ask the previous question that we talked about before they go into this item? Yes, please, go ahead. Secretary, before you came in, I asked for a special meeting to talk about the suspected heritage site at Harcourt Garden in Admiralty. The chairman said that he would like to include it in the agenda for the next meeting, which is at the end of next month. But the question is, I don't know how much damage has been done or suspected damage has been done to that heritage site, because if damage is being done, I think the panel has the responsibility to hold a special meeting ASAP so the secretary and your officials can explain things to us. We don't know to what extent damage is being done. I think that is known only to you and your colleagues. Could I get an initial response from you so we know whether we should have a special meeting or leave it till the next meeting? Okay, Secretary, can you please respond so that we can make a decision? Thank you, Chairman. The AMO, upon receiving notice from archaeologists commissioned by the MTRCL, the AMO did a site visit and asked for details from the relevant archaeologists. We understand that the embankment was at the coast of Admiralty, used to be at the coast of Admiralty, and it was not a part of the Wellington Battery. It had been subject to damage in previous projects, and now only bits and pieces have remained. And we are monitoring the situation because we are also concerned. Dr. Ka-lok is asking whether it will be subject to daily damage. I don't think so. So you are guaranteeing that between now and the next meeting there will not be further damage done, even if it is a suspected heritage site. What I mean is we understand members and the community's concern, and my colleagues are already watching the situation closely. You agree? Then we can have it discussed only on the 27th of November. Are we talking about the same heritage site? Or are you really going to closely monitor it so there is no damage? You are actually denying that it is a heritage site. So is it a heritage site? I was explaining that a heritage site was mentioned in a report we received. And as I said, we understand that members and the communities are very concerned, so we are monitoring the situation. So, okay, first, it is not part of the Wellington Battery, but rather it is a heritage site which has been previously damaged by construction works. So you're watching the situation closely, so it will not be further damaged. Or is it that since it is not part of Wellington Battery, it can be subject to further damage? Well, if it is a kind of antiquity or monument, we will not allow it to be damaged. Dr. Kenneth Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to follow up on one issue. Actually, yesterday I already wrote a letter to the Secretary. I believe he has received my letter. And I asked a series of questions in that letter so that I could get to know the background and of the issue and how it is developing. Is it that you are denying all the reports in the media? Well, I am asking my colleagues to follow up the issue, and I would reply to you as soon as possible. No, actually, when you answered Mr. or Dr. Ka-lok, you more or less told him that the media reports are not correct or accurate, and you have already dealt with it. So we'd like to know whether you are actually saying that. It seems now you are telling me that you have to clarify matters, but that is not what you said just now. Well, my information is as what I told you. I have received your letter, Mr. Kenneth Chan. As I said, I'm following up on your letter, and I will give you a comprehensive reply as soon as possible. ASAP, you mean within 1 or 2 days? Within 1 or 2 days. Okay. Ms. Ann Chiang. Well, if he has agreed to give a reply in 1 or 2 days, then I would have nothing further to say. But actually, I was going to say that I didn't understand what Mr. Chan was going after, because the Secretary has already said that it is not a heritage site. But you said that he should actually clarify matters and should tell you about this matter. But you yourself should be clear about that matter so that you can ask the Secretary to discuss it with you. Right? Do you understand that, Mr. Kenneth Chan? If you are sure that there is this matter, then I will support you. But the Secretary has already said that there is not such a matter. Nothing else, Chairman. I was just trying to express my views. Mr. James Toh. Chairman, I think it is not Mr. Kenneth Chan's responsibility to certify or find out whether there is this matter, but the Secretary has known the concern expressed, and after that day, if an antiquity or monument is being destroyed or damaged, then the administration or the Secretary has a heavy responsibility. Members have registered the concern, hoping that the Secretary and the administration, of course the Secretary is now before us, will exercise extreme caution in tackling the matter, or else the public will have to decide for themselves whether the administration or Secretary is preserving the heritage site, or is it allowing the development to make daily damage to the heritage site. I hope the Secretary understands this. Okay. As I said, this will be included as an item for the next meeting. Let us go into the proper agenda, shall we? Administration, are you going to use the PowerPoint presentation to take us through the paper?
Mr. Chairman, I'll say a few words, and then my colleagues will take members through the major points. Yes, Secretary. with the Development Bureau, colleagues, the Planning Department, and the CEDD will try to brief members on the results of the Stage 3 public engagement of Northeast NT. Now for the progress. The study started in 2008. Development Bureau and the other departments, November of 2008, November 2009, and June this year, consulted the development panel. And in the June meeting, members' views touched on different areas. For example, the arrangements for the new development areas, and so protection of agricultural land and Long Valley, and also compensation for owners, etc. Whether the consultation period could be extended because the original date was the end of August, and also whether the density could be increased. And for the NDAs, for greening, for village-type developments, what are the implications for members' views? We'll collate them with the other public views. Last Wednesday at LegCo, at the sitting, we said that in promoting NT Northeast new development areas, public engagement is very important. We extended the public engagement period to the end of September. We're willing still to listen to members' views and the community's views. We hope that we can perfect and fine-tune our planning so that planning can really suit different aspirations and can have a balanced mix of the aspirations. We hope that we can have better arrangements for the affected people. We try to collate and analyze the results, the public views from Stage 3 public engagement, about 10,000 submissions. We'll consider them and assess them from planning, from works angles. We'll see how we can fine-tune and adjust the ODP so that we could really meet the aspirations of people. For the results of our consideration, they will be in the planning proposal, and we'll give an account to the public. For the amendments directions, we'll increase the density, the possibility of it. We're exploring that. Increase housing, perhaps the ratio for public housing perhaps is over 50%. We are studying that. We find suitable sites for new HOS, and we will try to introduce clauses concerning Hong Kong property for Hong Kong residents. We'll try to have agricultural rehabilitation. For the first half of next year, for public engagement 3 PE3 results, we'll publish a report. And then we'll have statutory planning procedures, and then we'll have other preparations for the NDAs, including rehousing and compensation, etc. We'll keep communication with the stakeholders. Now, Mr. Raymond Lee, Assistant Director of Planning, will brief members on the public views and also the concerns. And we'll have some initial response, and then we'll have some discussions. We'll be glad to take members' questions. Yes, Mr. Lee. Mr. Chairman, members, we have some new electoral members at this term, so I'll try to recap the background of the NDAs. Then we'll comment on public views, and then we'll give our preliminary response. I hope to spend 10 minutes briefing members on this. For land NDAs, actually, it's not something new. In the 1990s, early 1990s, with the Territorial Development Strategy Review, and it was said that we have to explore the NDAs in NENT. At the end of 1990s, we have planning and development study on NENT. And in 2003, considering the need for housing, the government has suspended the NDAs. Then we'll wait for study on Hong Kong 2030, a planning vision and strategy, and then we'll take a microscopic view of territorial development, and we'll see whether we had to proceed with NDAs. And then at the end of 2007, we had the results on the study on Hong Kong 2030. Among the various proposals, one proposal was to go ahead with the land NDAs to deal with the increase in Hong Kong population and also the attendance problems concerning housing, etc. So in the middle of 2008, we had the land NDA study and the commencement of it. Now for land NDAs, for planning and studies, we had 3 stages of public engagement. End of 2008 and the early 2009, before we had specific proposals, we shared with the public our baseline information so that the people will know the general picture of it. At the end of 2009, we had the preliminary ODP. We have basic parameters and also outline the development plans for land use, etc. Then we had the PE2, consulting the public about certain views. After collecting public views, we had some amendments to the plans, and we had more detailed technical studies. And in June this year, we had a PE3. We consulted the public concerning our recommended ODP. Now for the 3 stages of PE, for every stage, we briefed the development panel of LegCo. Now for the following slides, I would like to recap the different proposals. About housing land, there are about 150 hectares of housing land, about 53,000 new residential units accommodating 150,000 people. About employment, in the areas, we will create 52,000 new job opportunities. Half of them will be from special industries, commerce and related developments. And for the other half of job opportunities, they come from NDAs, say the service industries and other facilities. About balanced housing mix, now for the recommended ODP, 43% is public rental housing and 57% is for private housing. We understand that the community aspires for quality living environments, so we attach importance to green living environments. And we adopt different concepts like terraced layout, and also we have landscaping, and also ventilation corridors, etc. And also for open space, public facilities, etc. They may concentrate on public traffic interchange within 500 meters to reduce traffic need. We'll try to save energy, reuse the sewage, district cooling system, and also renewable energy, etc. We hope to have some green environmental or building designs. For conservation of Long Valley, of the core area of Long Valley, we have nature park to upgrade the ecological values. Then we'll have, in the NDAs, we'll keep 54 hectares of agriculture zone. About the mode of development, for PE3, the government said that we will adopt conventional new town approach. We hope to ensure that we have a timetable and we'll act accordingly. And we can have a balanced approach to provide housing, infrastructure, facilities, and also governments and community facilities. And we'll respond to local rehousing needs of the affected people. For Kutong North, we have a piece of land for local rehousing. And when we started the PE3, we said to the public that the government appreciated the fact that certain people wanted to have enhanced compensation and rehousing, and we are doing a review. And for this sort of information at the PE3, we disseminated information to the public. Now for the following slides, I would like to highlight certain points so to give members an impression about the NDAs for the three areas, about the configuration. That is Kutong North NDA. Now, our idea is this: for high-density developments and public housing, they will be surrounding the railway station and along Fanling Highway. We have some places for commercial and research facilities. We're creating job opportunities. For Long Valley core area, it is a nature park, and high ecological value is attached to Long Valley, etc. Now for housing developments, we'll have a gradual reduction of layouts in terms of housing. For Fanling North NDA, for the layout, we're talking about the east and the west, two pieces of housing land, and in the center we have a central park. And for government facilities, we are talking about the western side of the NDA. For Pingche Kakuling NDA, we are talking about small and medium density housing is to the south of the NDA, and to the north of the NDA, it will be for special industries. For PE3, it ended at the end of September. For different bodies, councils, and community groups, we had more than 30 briefings and meetings, and there were 2 public forums. We received written submissions, actually more than 10,000. We're still analyzing and collating the submissions. Very quickly, we read the submissions and will group the submissions into different categories, and then we'll explain these things to members promptly, and we'll share with members our preliminary views. Now, the first aspect, that's for some public views. They say that for the NDAs, it's a kind of Hong Kong Shenzhen unification, and it is said that it is ceding land and selling out Hong Kong. And it is said that the new private residential flats are mainly for mainlanders. We have these allegations. Now, the government thinks that these allegations are groundless. Now, for the NDAs, we're talking about Hong Kong people's new towns to meet Hong Kong's housing needs, and the land is reserved for promoting Hong Kong economic development. And there are some other views which questions whether NDAs are urgent. According to the Census and Statistics Department's figures about population growth, it is said that population growth will become slower. It is said that we have other land for housing. It's really necessary that we develop these NDAs. Now, our thinking is this. For the population growth, it may slow, but for the next 30 years, we still have an increase of about 1.4 million people. Still, we have the need to develop additional land to increase land supply to satisfy our long-term needs for housing and needs for other uses.
There were concerns about the low development intensity, and it is said that there is not a good balance between public-private housing. As the Secretary said a moment ago, we'll actively consider how we can boost the development density to provide more housing. And in the NDA, we'll try to identify sites for PRH and HOS development. We'll also properly introduce the Hong Kong Property for Hong Kong Residents policy. But while we seek to enhance the development ratio, we must consider everything in a holistic manner, balancing different factors, which include a proper or suitable public-private housing ratio, and whether we have sufficient infrastructural development support. It is also important that we consider the expectations of the public for quality living environment. There were some comments about the RODPs. These concerns were about the configuration or arrangement of the different facilities. For example, about Ku Te Ao, it is asked whether police facilities, training facilities should be there. Could that be relocated? We need to devote more time to look into these proposals to see whether there is room for revision in the RODP to satisfy those members of the public who have said what they said. The implementation approach, we have received views saying that our proposed conventional new town approach, or CNTA, would go against the legitimate expectation of developers, because they think that we should allow for land exchange or issue land exchange entitlements. In this regard, as to what implementation mode or approach should be adopted, we must carefully consider the views of all quarters and which mode is most suitable. When we do so, we'll have to see which mode would allow us to provide housing in a timely manner, and also how the public would find that mode acceptable or otherwise. We'll have to consider all these before deciding on an implementation approach. And also there were other concerns which had to do with compensation and rehousing. Some villages who were affected had strongly demanded that there should be no removal and no clearance. But then we have also got views saying that there should be better compensation and rehousing arrangement. And it is also said whether there could be rehousing in situ, whether more choices could be given, and also whether the comprehensive means test could be waived. At Kutong North, we have already reserved land to provide rehousing in situ. We'll continue to look into other NDAs to see whether there is the possibility for land for local rehousing. As for compensation and rehousing, the administration has already said that it is reviewing the existing policy. We hope that in implementing such a big-scale project, and when there is need for compensation and rehousing, we hope proper arrangements could be put in place in order to satisfy the needs and demands of affected villages. And also there were views about the loss of agricultural land and what assistance could be given to displaced farmers. It is said that we do not have a good policy to help affected farmers. In our plan at Long Valley, we have a nature park. We are going to preserve farming land there so people can start farming there. But at the same time, together with the AVIC Bureau and also AFCD, we have tried to see whether we could find suitable land near the NDAs, to see whether we can provide land for affected farmers who would like to continue farming so they can still continue with their farming activities. Last but not least, there is this concern about inadequate public consultation. Some affected people said that they got to know about the development plan details only quite recently. Actually, at all previous stages for public engagement, we had used different channels to publicize the project, and we tried to consult the public widely. We'll continue to go in that direction and maintain close communication with stakeholders. As for the way forward, we will need some time to study and analyze written submissions received and adjust the RODPs. We will let the public know the results of that adjustment as soon as possible. According to the timetable we now work with, we hope that we can publish the PE3 report in the first half of 2013, and only then shall we commence the statutory planning procedures and other preparatory works. Chairman, this is my briefing. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Now members can ask questions. I propose members have 5 minutes each, including the reply from the administration. We have a series of members, over 10. First of all, Gary Chan, then K.K. Kwok, Regina Ip, Chen Yun Han, Ferdinand Zheng, Emily Lau, Wu Chi Wai, Albert Chen, Lo Wai Kwok, Chen Kam Lam, Ann Chiang, Kenneth Chan, James Teen, Ibrahim Sheikh, Ronnie Tong, and Alan Leong, 16, now 17. Gary Fan. Gary Chan. Thank you, Chairman. The NENT project is quite controversial and the views are quite extreme, but I have heard this central thought and principle which has not changed, and that is members of the public would like to see land being made available at this area to meet public housing needs. That is the core, and it should not be changed. Therefore, when the administration develops NENT, you must not give people the impression that it would become some land for wealthy mainlanders, and there must not be any transfer of benefits. The Secretary said that there would be a heightening of the ratio of PRH, that there would be more in development density, and also there would be the element of Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people. I think all these are desirable, and I believe this should be implemented in your adjustment to the RODPs. And I have 3 questions for the administration. In para 24, the last few lines, it is said that some squatter residents raise concern about the delayed implementation of the development proposals, as they are worried that there will be no proper rehousing arrangements should the landowners take back the land. My question for the administration is, what concrete measures do you have to reassure the squatters so that their inherent rights will not be affected? Second question. This is going to be a 3-in-1 kind of proposal, but then there are 3 areas. In certain areas, there is more controversy, but not so in other areas. Do you still insist that you develop the 3 at the same time, or would you go for the easy part first, where there is not so much controversy? Or will you go for areas where there is a higher proportion of housing areas, for example, Fanling North and Kutong North? Would that be one of your considerations? And the third question, the implementation approach. In para 22, you said that you have decided to go for the traditional CNTA approach. If that's the case, well, Actually, there are many different views in the community saying that different interests will be involved, and in fact litigation might be necessitated. Would that affect the provision of housing if that's the case? What other implementation approaches are open to you? For your choice, which one will provide public housing the fastest? 3 questions. Secretary, can I please ask the PS to comment on the point about squatter residents? Thank you. According to initial information of the consultant, we understand that in the project, there are about 1,700 households which are affected. In our 3 PEs, we have received a very clear request that they would like to be rehoused in situ if they are eligible for PRH. That is why at PE3, the proposal was that in the NDA of Kutong North, 3.2 hectares would be put aside for priority PRH development, providing 2,400 units. In recent years, we have done rehousing and removal of residents in a few large-scale government projects, and therefore we think that our present policy is sound. But then we are still actively reviewing it, and we hope that the new arrangement resulting from the review would be better aligned with requests or demands from residents. As Mr. Chan said, squatter residents may be renting private premises, and some of the landowners are taking land away from them. But since we have not got the new arrangement, so we cannot put in place any compensation or rehousing arrangement yet. As the Secretary said in the motion debate last week, we appeal to landowners in that area to have some kind of social conscience, because what they are doing will not be good for them, neither would it be good for residents. 2 other questions. But because of time constraint, I will just give brief answers. I have heard Mr. Gary Chan's points, and that whether the 3 NDAs must be developed at one go or whether they can be undertaken in stages. We have heard your view. We will think about it carefully. But what about the implementation approach? Which one is the quickest one to provide PRH? But you have exceeded your time. Please be brief. Well, there is not one implementation approach which will be easy and fast to do, but we do not rule out any possibilities. We will not rule any possibilities, but would consider every view carefully. Ka-lok, thank you. The NENT development has driven a wedge into Hong Kong again. I have heard the briefing, and it is like you have turned public comments into criticism. In fact, many residents are not indigenous villages, and these people got to know the development project only at a very late stage, and I believe you know about it. If you point the finger at villages saying that they have submitted their views late, I believe that would only be further divisive between the public and the administration. You have said a lot in your paper. You said that there should be integration with PRD and Shenzhen. This is a government paper. It is not like what the Secretary said, that people have added that into your project. It is just a 5-minute drive from these NDAs to Shenzhen. And if residents are going to live here and they work in the city area, especially those in Fanling and Pingche, which is not served by a railway, it will take them over an hour and it is going to be costly. Actually, this project is not people-oriented. Just look at Tin Shui Wai and Tong Chong. You understand how expensive traveling is and how much time is spent on traveling for those people. There are over 2,000 hectares of land which can be used for housing, but in the entire development area, there are about 150 to 167 hectares which is used for housing. You said that, like C.Y. Leung said, 1% of our land can house 1 million people, he said. If that's the case, people don't have to live in subdivided flats. And we have to wait till 2021 for first stage, and only till 2031 that you can house 500,000 people there.
Okay, you use $40 billion to get about 400 or 450 hectares of private land from 1998 up to now for the three major developers, Henderson Land, Sun Hung Kai, and also New World. Actually, they acquired a lot of land. The government should give some calculations for the $40 billion for the three big families. It's true that they can share some of this. Isn't it a kind of a conveyance of interest for the $40 billion? If we use it for public housing or HOS, how many units will there be? So that we don't have to be divisive in Hong Kong here. We don't have to divide lands so that people will have housing belatedly. Secretary? Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to get entangled in allegations or counter-allegations. We can put that aside. Actually, for land NDAs, I'm sure a lot of people have misunderstandings. Just now, Mr. Ka-lok mentioned the integration with a PRD. Actually, in the same paper, excuse me, actually, I'm belaboring the same point. Now, the guiding principles for the strategic role of the NDAs is to deal with integration of PRD. You have you will reserve the land for industries which will have advantages, etc. Will promote quality industries, etc. 50% or more than 50% may be public housing, including rental housing or HOS, or private development. Where we say that there will be small and medium-sized units, and we will suitably introduce a Hong Kong property for Hong Kong residents arrangements. Actually, we are building houses for Hong Kong people. And thirdly, Mr. Ka-lok said that, well, for the $40 billion, we can have rent housing or HOS, but we still have to find land. So the NDAs, we are not trying to supply the benefits to others. For the $40 billion, how about the big developers? Can they pocket some of this money? He hasn't answered that. Now, Mr. Chairman, for acquisition or resumption of land, actually, for the compensation amount that is gazetted, whether we have person or group A, B, or C, is the same. For developers, the government really cannot have accurate projections of how much land they have hoarded. But the Hong Kong people are shortchanged, Mr. Chairman, said Mr. Kwok. Well, each member has 5 minutes. It's very hard to satisfy members in terms of government's answers. Well, you can meet the Secretary on some other occasions. You can talk to him. Mrs. Regina Yip, Mr. Chairman. Now, for Cervantes, which I founded, and for New People's Party, for the past 3 years we gave submissions. Okay, we have to look at housing land, we have to look at land for special industries or industrial restructuring. I'm glad that the government has listened to us. So to the north, we still have some land for special industries and for industries in which we have advantages. This is very important because development cost is very high, and we don't just have restaurants there. We have to complement Shenzhen facilities. Good things from Shenzhen can come to us. For example, they ask us to help the reclamation, but for the good things, they should come to us as well. Now, Secretary, I think agriculture, yes, we have to develop high value-added agriculture. Taiwan is a good example. I think next month there will be a study tour to Taiwan. Secretary, do we have people in the government to coordinate advantageous industries? So how about high-tech industries in Shenzhen are very good. we will introduce companies like Huawei and ZTE group to help us to stimulate Hong Kong's economy. And for the industrial land, how much does it occupy in terms of our total land? Secretary? Now for industrial development, Mr. Chairman, commerce developments and economic developments, Industry Souls Bureau will be responsible for that. Of course, for low interest loans, for technological support, etc., we'll use this to help agricultural development so that we can have modernized products. We can have green technology. We hope to come up with high value added products. Now the Food and Health Bureau is responsible for that. For housing land, of course, we are concerned. But many people focus on housing. But apart from residential land, we need land to generate income. How much land is for economic or industrial restructuring? Mr. Lee can mention that. For developable land, as about 8 to 10% of developable land. Okay. Ms. Chen Yunhan, Secretary. You cannot say that industrial development is not your concern because we have a big area. Now, for the Federation of Trade Unions, actually, more than a decade ago, actually, we mentioned this kind of development. Please do not use this as an excuse. Now, we have a big piece of land. We have residential land. We have industries. We have traditional agriculture. We have new things and old facilities. I think the Secretary should really think about that. I don't want to launch criticisms. Please take a look at it, and you cannot just reject your responsibility to other bureaus. Since you are here, you should answer questions. For Northeast, actually, we've been talking about that for years. Actually, at the end of September, I met the Secretary to talk about our views. Now, today, I would like to highlight several things. Mrs. Regina Yip mentioned a point. Now, we are also concerned whether this piece of land will be like Tin Shui Wai. That is, whether you just have residential housing and no other facilities. That was wrong. I think many Hong Kong professionals criticized the developments of Tin Shui Wai. Okay, now you want to develop housing land? I'll come to that later. But I would like to stress one point. You must have other supporting facilities or activities, including economic activities. It may not be integration with the mainland. We should talk about made in Hong Kong, okay? Chinese herbal medicine, okay? We should develop that in Hong Kong. We talk about agricultural land. I have gone to Long Valley. There are many hectares of agricultural land there. Just now, Raymond's talk about nature park. Yes, it's good, but nature park should tie in with the present situation. You know that we have some farmers there, and you know some professional groups are talking about conservation. How about the green economy at present? How would you deal with that? For Long Valley, you still put housing there. Will you use some other places for that? How about Ho Sheng Hang? How about Ho Sheng Hang? People's aspiration is very simple. Organic or organic farming. Can you allow people to do it in situ? We will relocate them. The motion, let's go. I said that for farming, actually, people have been doing cultivation for years, for many generations. That is good farmland. How about Ma Shi Po? People want local rehousing. Well, I was a member for 13 years. Lei Tong Street, Kwun Tong, I was experienced in situ housing. Just like what we are going to talk about in a later part of today's meeting. How about the non-indigenous villages? There are residents there. Perhaps you criticize them. You say that they went there because they knew that there would be the development. Now for Tai Ham Chun, about more than 7,000 households. Okay, there was rehousing. Now, Mr. Chairman, we don't just want to assist the indigenous villages. How about the non-indigenous villages? Hope that Secretary can answer me. Now, third point, the government should be careful. Please do not be indiscriminate in coming up with so-called solutions. You know that Hong Kong people want housing. You just try to find housing land wantonly. I think the citizens will talk about every piece of housing land with you in great detail. You just want housing, but beautiful land will be affected. Now, my homeland is Shenzhen. You know that a lot of land in Shenzhen is affected. But now in northern territories, we have green areas. For Bees River, why is it that it will be affected? Please not indiscriminately launch housing schemes. Please do not disrupt our NT or our economy. Mr. Secretary or Raymond, FTU supports developments, but the prerequisite is that we should do it organically. That is, we have to make use of regional culture, ecology, etc. Do not disrupt the present situation. Otherwise, it's not Tongchong or Tinshui Wai. We should have something new. And secondly, agricultural land. I'll queue up later on. Please answer my questions, or you can give me written answers. Next member, Mr. Fernando Zhang, and then Ms. Emily Lau. Mr. Fernando Zhang. Thank you. The government gave a briefing. Well, it is just harping on the same old chord. For the land NDAs, the controversy is very severe. They talk about Shenzhen-Hong Kong unification. Some people say that. We are also talking about the future development of Hong Kong. How do we deal with rural-urban relationships? How do we deal with Hong Kong farmland? For the NT land, if we face developments, do we have agricultural policy? Do we have a specific land policy? Actually, we don't have that. Hong Kong is a financial metropolis in the 21st century, but these major policy areas are such that we have drawn a blank. The government is not talking about how we deal with land allocation, how we deal with rural-urban relationships, how we deal with farming in Hong Kong. Just now, the administration said that we have about 2,000 odd households, but not too many people. But, Mr. Chairman, you know that for the NDAs, for the past 10 years or so, we have been talking about development, we are talking about a public-private partnership, but big developers have acquired land. So there's disruption which precedes the development. Is it true that we don't have too many households left? But for the outstanding questions just now, the first question, have you done any assessment for land NTAs? How much active farmland will be lost? It's not just about planned farmland. How about the use, the farmland which is in use? How much will it be lost? The government says that in the neighboring areas, you find land for rehabilitation. How much land have you found for rehabilitation? Now, some people say that for land NDAs, for the vegetables produce in the farmland, is 1/3 of the local production of vegetables in Hong Kong, actually. It's very serious. We are disrupting 1/3 of the production of local vegetables. So how much will there be adverse impact on production? Have you done any assessment? Now, it's a little time for the government's story. From Chu Hoi-tik's article, I knew that the government said that there was a lot of consultation. Many indigenous villages, okay, they don't know that. But actually, for many residents, for one of the areas, Tai Kwu Ling, Ping Che, government's consultation is at the district council level and also rural committee level, etc.
And then there are the VRs who are indigenous villages. However, there are also many non-indigenous villages even if they have been living there for generations. In Tackling Pingche, the rural committees held a basin meal to congratulate the development in NENT, and residents were invited to the so-called basin meal, and then residents only found out about this development at the basin meal, and then they knew that their homes would be affected, and so they organized the Tackling Pingche NENT Development Concern Group. It was there that they found out it was a basin meal organized by the rural committees, so the consultation is ridiculous. However, I would leave some time for the administration to answer me on the concrete impact on agriculture and what is our agriculture policy. Chairman, can I ask Mr. Lee to explain about agricultural land? Chairman, thank you for the question. According to information we have, in NENT NDAs, land which is usually used for farming, well, according to the investigation by our consultant, would be around 55 hectares, and the farmland that would be affected by the NDAs would be around 22 hectares. As I said in our plan, to the north and south of the core area of Long Valley and also at Fute Ao, we are going to preserve about 54 hectares of farmland. And I'd like to supply information. According to information we have, there are about 200 farmers in the area. We have said that in the 54 hectares preserved for farming in the NDAs, there will be opportunity for people who are interested in continuing to farm. We understand that some of the 54 hectares might already be used for farming. And that is why, together with the FH Bureau and the AFCD, we are looking for land in the vicinity of the NDAs to see whether we can provide farmland for interested farmers. We are continuing to do it. We do not have the final concrete figure. We are just working in that direction. Time's up. I hope members will be brief with your questions, so you leave time for the administration to answer you, so you seek a better understanding of the issue. Ms. Emily Lau. Thank you, Chairman. Last week I moved a motion, and of course the motion was not carried. It was not supported by the majority in LegCo, and the administration refuses to withdraw the project. Even if you don't, the problem is going to remain. In the introduction, last page, it is said that in the first half of next year, it will release the PE3 result. And then what else? It will commence statutory planning procedures. The question is, will there be a consensus? Many residents are asking you to withdraw the project and start the discussion again because they would like to forge a consensus in society. Just now the Secretary and his officials have said, as you said at the motion debate last time, a lot of these things do not belong to the same package. I don't know what proposals now you have. The Secretary did not answer your question. I don't think he's going to today. If you cannot forge a consensus, if you again present things which prove to be controversial, I really can't see how you can commence your statutory planning procedure. One thing is particularly controversial, and that is the implementation approach. That is on page 17 of the PowerPoint. Some people say that you should go for the conventional new town approach, but other people say that you should allow developers to have land exchange. And the administration is saying, I'll wait and see. Let me see, they said. I'll make a decision then after that. Then what kind of decision are you going to make? The decision will surely, again, be controversial. The thing is, you should discuss this in the community first to try to see whether you can find an option that will receive majority support before you can go ahead. So, Secretary, what are you going to do? Let me now talk about other issues. Last but not least, those residents who are forcibly removed. There are over 1,000 households. Just now, the PS asked them to have a conscience to help residents. And also, the Secretary said the same thing at the debate last week. What if people do not have this social conscience? They are watching this meeting from live broadcast on TV, but then a few months down the road, they would be forcibly removed. What are you going to do to help them? Secretary. Chairman, the implementation approach, we have said many times that whether it be CNTA or some kind or some degree of private participation. On the 28th of September, when we provided the paper, the inclination was for CNTA, but then there were different views here at LegCo, and so there was a supplementary reply saying that if private participation could also guarantee that housing will be timely and also orderly provided, and if it is found to be acceptable to the public, we can consider it. But we are still considering it because the LegCo gave different views and the community also provided different views. Now, even if we go for CNTA, does it mean that the administration will resume all land? Not necessarily. We might not have to resume all land. So we really have to look into that in detail. That's the first point. Second point, between now and future adjustments, I believe we'll continue to liaise, communicate, and exchange with stakeholders. We'll certainly not work behind closed doors and then suddenly we open the door and say, this is it. We'll definitely communicate with stakeholders in the interim. At present, squatter residents and other residents possibly removed by developers, we have given a lot of consideration to that. It seems there is nothing we can do at the moment because at this present stage, we have not finalized the plan. We have not even decided on the boundary. So it is not appropriate for us to do any registration on site. I hope, therefore, and I can put it this way, that residents who are oppressed, if they need SWD to help, will certainly help them. And if there are illegal acts, I'm sure the police will not just sit there and do nothing. Thank you, Albert Chan. No, Wu Chi-wai. And then Albert Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to follow up on the issue of implementation approach. As many members said, developers have been assembling land. They exhausted many ways to drive out residents who live on their land. If you ask me what concrete things can be done, I hope you will not be rehashing your points. On the 28th of June, you said you would go for the CNTA approach, and to a certain extent, you have dashed the hopes of developers who are trying to force out the residents. Because if you go for the CNTA approach, they will have to face the impact done by the land resumption ordinance, and so they might not dare to do it. However, your paper says that after PE2, developers had a lot to say about this. They said that you should leave some room for PPP, public-private participation. And this is the biggest worry of the public. And that is, you leave so much room for public-private participation in any NT, then who is going to benefit in the end? I think the CNT approach can, to a very great extent, allay those worries. And secondly, we should make reference to the tragic experience in Tongchong and Tinshui Wai and try to provide job opportunities where people live. But then in the paper, the 50,000 odd jobs would have to rely on the so-called special industries zone in Pingche. I don't know whether you are really confident that the industries will indeed come to Pingche. If you look at the present state our society is in, if what you expect will not materialize, can your plan be implemented? And so many job opportunities are combined with future development in Pingche, and so much land is preserved for low-density housing. Then in the end, are you going to waste very precious land resources? You also have to think about your agriculture policy. You have to provide land for people to continue farming. And if you're talking about a policy on agriculture as an industry, which is different from farming done on a casual basis, then perhaps you have to think about a rather large area for agriculture to be practiced as an industry instead of at Kutong and Fanling North, where farming is done on a piecemeal scale. This has everything to do with your policy for agriculture as an industry. And if you still have a 3-in-1 development, you're going to affect the whole picture. So first of all, you should go for the CNT approach. That's what I'm saying. So developers will not continue to aggregate land for some final gain. And 2, the 3 NDAs might have to be developed at different stages. You should go for Fanning North and Pingche North, but preserve Pingche for agriculture as an industry to be developed. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Wu has commented on the implementation approach. I've heard him clearly, I understand him, but I will not repeat what I said already. Second point, economic development and job opportunities. In our original plan, Pingche will provide 10,700 jobs. In other words, 10,700 out of 50,000. And 70% of the jobs will be in Kutong North. As for economic development and industries, I'd like to take the opportunity to explain. Just now, members accused me of shirking the responsibility, saying that the industry policy, meaning agriculture, is shirked to another bureau, but that is not my intention at all. When we did the planning, we looked at job opportunities, industry policy, and also economic development. We consulted the CED Bureau. Ms. Chen Yunhan and Fernando Zhang, they mentioned agriculture, and we also discussed with the relevant bureaus. For the Development Bureau, in terms of land planning, we complement what other bureaus do. You talked about whether the 3 NDAs should be developed at the same time or in different stages. I have heard you clearly. You have spoken from a different perspective of Mr. Gary Chen, but nevertheless, the two of you have talked about whether the 3 NDAs should be developed at one go or at different stages. We have heard you clearly. When we consider our way forward, we will avail ourselves to your views. Thank you. Albert Chan and then Lo Wai Kwok.
Actually, we have been talking about lands NDAs, Hutong and then the Northern Link, etc. Actually, at that time, we didn't have the South Island line. I think when the South Island line is completed for the North Link, actually it will not start its work. So the government is giving priority to the urban areas. So for the NT development, actually is lagging behind. It does not have due regard for NT people's needs. at an earlier time. So it caused inconvenience for the NT people. So I'd like to take to task the government's inclination towards certain areas, that is urban areas. For NT West, actually for Tsim we have 600,000 people. We have only 2 railway stations. But in the urban areas, we have a lot of railway stations. So there's no fairness. There's no impartiality in the planning and development. A lot of people in certain areas are discriminated against. For NENT, it reflects government's problems in terms of housing supply and planning supply. There are 2 major deficiencies. For the town planning ordinance, for the ODP, OCP, of course, you have a statutory process. But for strategic development, there is no statutory procedure. You have a lot of consultation papers, and then the government makes executive or administrative decisions. You don't have appeal opportunities. You have to rectify the problem. So for the town planning ordinance, you have to have an overhaul. You have to have a territorial strategic consultation process. And then for certain areas, you should also have a statutory procedure, and then you have the OCPs, etc. For the first 2 levels, if you don't have a statutory procedure, then you only have a kind of administrative dominance. Officials come and go, and then policies are changing, and people are not in the know. And for the second big problem, for housing supply, land supply, there should be a 10-year rolling program. For the next 10 years, for the next 5 years, you should have plans. For the next 5 years, there's a kind of projection. You should have some sort of a map, and then you don't have to argue. Some people say that you don't have to go to NT Northeast, you should go to the urban area. If you don't have a specific road map, then people will argue over that. The government is hiding something. Actually, when the government takes out something, actually is kind of a rotting orange. So if you don't have clear planning concepts or guidelines, then we make decisions is ambiguous, and you really can't have a clear perspective. For NT Northeast, well, I have to give bouquets apart from brickbats. Now for greening, that's good. For NT Northeast, the government has put in resources and manpower in dealing with major decisions, like conserving a Long Valley, and you resume land to keep available land, a natural land. That is a new perspective. Please implement that. For greening, apart from green planning, you should develop local plans, etc. The related things, I will talk about it with the government. Now, there are other things. First, the government has to make decisions. The government should know that people don't want Hong Kong land to satisfy mainlanders. Development should look at local needs. That's the main principle. If you have outside factors which affect Hong Kong people's interests, this kind of decisions should be scrapped. Then we can avoid controversy. About housing, agriculture, yes, they are important. In 2008, we had a proposal to the government for NT Northeast. It should be some sort of a livestock area for Hong Kong, for pig farming, poultry farming, etc. Then we can have a live poultry for Hong Kong people. There should be organic farming. We should have planning for this, and we should have policy and resources. They should all tie in. Perhaps you have to have water channels, you have to improve cultivated land, etc. And lastly, an opinion. There's a big problem in Hong Kong. Well, you have just unification of planning for new towns. For Hong Kong land, San Hong Kong, etc., we have the same mode. But for NT Northeast, it's very unique. So the government and the landholders and the stakeholders should really come up with NT Northeast new development approach and mode. so that through this kind of development we can stimulate the local economy, create jobs, and then we can have a unique community, and then we can keep the characteristics of an land. And also compensation and rehousing, this is also important. If you want to clear certain people, rehousing first. Rehousing precedes clearance. Otherwise, it's be like Choi Yin-chun. That was bad timing. So you must have adequate time for rehousing and clearance. So you should have farming rehabilitation for certain farmers to keep their rural lives. Where you spend all your time, Secretary? Please take note of Mr. Chan's points. Mr. Lo Wai-kok, now the government say that for land NDAs, an important function is to support the 6 major advantageous industries. Actually, in Hong Kong, we lack a long-term industrial policy. So for the technical sector and the industrial engineering sector, etc., with them, and I have talked to them, and I hope to know the government's thinking about the land NDAs. Otherwise, it's just talking about things in theory. Some members have touched upon this, so I want to reiterate this as well. Now, for land NDAs, for the planning and engineering studies, we don't have railway strategies. Say about the Northern Link. You can imagine that for the land living density, it can be increased. And you can have good transport supporting facilities. Then we can solve problems of people who work in other or in mainland or cross-boundary jobs. We are talking about the 6 major or pillar industries. It's not just about local people. For scientific research, we are talking about people who work in other districts or across the boundary. So I would like to know for land NDAs, would they be related with a railway development planning so that you take a macroscopic view of that? Who can answer that? Mr. Chairman, for developing land NDAs, actually, railway is the backbone for passenger traffic. For Kutong North, external traffic, railway is the mainstay. And residential area is near Kutong station, about within 500 meters, to reduce the traffic need, and then we can come up with a sustainable new community. Now, for railway development, actually, we have close liaison with the highways department. For highways department, earlier this year, it came up with the first stage of public engagement, reviewing the railway strategy, and the highways department is dealing with second page study. It hopes to come up with enhanced solutions or proposals. For example, having some spare lines, liaising with the highways department. I understand members' aspirations for Northern Link. If it can extend to Ping Che and Taku Link, then Ping Che and Taku Link's developments can be enhanced. That's our next step in terms of exploring that. Thank you. Anything to add? That's the first question. But Kutong North, we talk about 24 hectares for commerce, etc. Ping Che, etc. 30 hectares of special industries. Now, Secretary talk about division of labor. When we set this kind of activities, we will liaise with the relevant policy bureaus. We will reserve land. We are talking about a longer time frame. We promote that to have preferential policies, etc. I think that the relevant bureaus, etc., will think about that. Mr. Chen Kam-lum, and then Ms. Cheng Lai-wan. Thank you. Hong Kong's population is increasing, so we have greater need for housing. We should not drag our feet in terms of developing the NDAs. I agree that for the NDAs, the developing density can be increased. We have to identify new land for development. Sometimes it's quite difficult, and it's very hard to go for reclamation, and it will take a long time. So I hope that the administration can think of environmental protection and also residential density, which should strike a balance. Then appropriately we can increase housing density, and then we can effectively use our land resources. Then public-private partnership. When we talk about public-private sectors, people talk about the collusion between governments and business. Even if you talk about public-private partnership, actually it's a kind of transparent approach. It doesn't mean that in private there's a kind of deal to make decisions. So we can have an open or transparent approach. Well, we can't be definite at present about public or private sector development. The administration should consider the whole process so that expeditiously we can provide land for housing. Then the NDAs can be completed earlier on. Now by 2017 we have the first piece of land for use. It's quite slow. It's still 4 to 5 years on. Can we shorten the time span so that the NDAs can be expedited in development? I agree with Mr. Chen Hao-kan. The administration should do it in phases or in stages. Perhaps certain land is mature, certain aspects of planning are mature, then they should go ahead first. We don't have to wait for the whole NDA development. Anyway, we need land for development, especially developing housing land. I hope that the administration can consider these questions. Meanwhile, about special industries, Mr. Chairman, for special industries, in our concept, we are talking about high-tech industries. Actually, it's knowledge-based, and we need skilled labor. But for the NDAs here, if more than 50% of the people are from the grassroots, they may be public rental housing tenants. So how can we provide types of work suitable for the grassroots workers? That is also important. Otherwise, a lot of residents and workers have to travel to other districts, or maybe have to cross the boundary to work. It's not convenient for them to go to other districts to work. Of course, we have the railway as the backbone, but as we know, in the urban areas, for the main railway lines, they're very crowded. The patronage level is very high. So in future, people's traveling expenses may be very high, and then it's not convenient for them to be commuters. The government should really do some planning beforehand.
Secretary, PS. On development density, land is precious and will maximize the use of the land. So we will try to increase the development ratio wherever possible. As for implementation approach, actually at PE3, we said that we are inclined towards the CNTA approach because the administration will have total control of time, like the time for completion of public housing and private housing, the use of land for business, and also GIC facilities, etc. That will be totally within our grasp. As for developing the NDAs in phases, I will not repeat what the Secretary said. And transportation complement for the special industries, I defer to my colleague. On pink chair tackling special industries area, we have to know the capacity of the infrastructure planned, and then we'll supply the land for future development. As members said, if the spur line or extension of the Northern Link can extend to Pingche-Taku Link, there will be more room for review, and we can consider having more special industries developed there. Thank you. We have had a very lively discussion on the item. 9 members are standing in line for the first round. I don't think there will be time for the second round. I hope members will really be brief. Members in the queue are Ann Chang, Kenneth Chan, James Tsim, Ibrahim Sheikh, Ronnie Tong, Alan Leong, Gary Fan, Alice Mack, and Michael Teen. Ann Chang. Thank you, Chairman. Secretary, I'm still worried about employment. You said 150,000 people would be moved there, and you're going to create 50,000 jobs. Where do they come from? You really have to think about it. Would the 50,000 jobs have anything to do with Mr. Greg So? I think he can only help you create 10,000 jobs. That is the 10,000 special industries jobs in Pingche. But what kind of special industries are we talking about? Just now, your staff said that if there is room, he can consider expanding the area for special industries. But what are these special industries? They are really special. I hope to know more. Like in Tin Shui Wai, I believe when Tin Shui Wai was built, it was meant for 300,000 people. And in the end, there was not even 10% of that number of jobs. Only 20,000 local jobs. I don't know whether that was the number anyway, were created. And it said that in Tuen Mun there is to be an industrial estate. However, it is now all used for warehousing. Who's going to take that responsibility? Even today, people would thank the administration for providing WITSS. However, time is also the problem. People have to travel long distances. That's not convenient. So, Secretary, please spend time on this issue of employment. Please be more concrete and talk to Mr. Greg So. You are talking about 50,000 people. And in Kutong, you talk about special industries. But you can only accommodate 10,000 people. In other words, you have to take up 40,000 people, said the speaker. Are you only talking about giving them jobs as caretakers or gardeners? Please do your sums well. And then a few brief points. You still have 10 hectares of land to support development at the loop, the river loop. Is it still on the agenda, or are you having new thoughts about the river loop? And also, talking about jobs, I'm just thinking whether it is safest for you to move 2 government departments into the area, so you can take up 20,000 of the 40,000 jobs you have to create. Those are my questions. You have time to answer the questions. Thank you, Ms. Chang. Mr. Lee of the Planning Department. Thank you. Thank you for the question about jobs. Our estimation now is that there would be 50,000 odd new jobs. About half would come from the special industries area in Pingche Takuling and also in Kutong North, we have reserved land for commercial and research business. As Ms. Chang was saying, there are also 10 hectares of land to support development at the Loop area. So half of those jobs would come from these areas, and then the other half would come from within the area, where there will be service industries, retail, and community services to support the development of the new towns. In other words, half of the new jobs would come from the special industries and other uses, but the other half would be generated as a result of providing support for the new town development. As for the special industries, what are they? They are high value added and non-polluting industries, including testing and accreditation, innovative and also environmental industries, logistics and cultural industries. All these can take place in the special industries area. This is the configuration at the present stage. This is what the Development Bureau has thought about, or have you discussed with Mr. Greg So? In formulating land use, we have talked to relevant departments, including asking about the request from CEDB. We are just reserving land for all these uses, and at this stage we have just reserved the land for the creation of jobs. Right, thank you. And Mr. Kenneth Chen and then Mr. James Teen. I also have a question about Pingche and Takuling. I understand that all planning will be based on estimation, which will in turn be based on forecast. Just now you were talking about the Pingche Takuling NDAs, and you say 10,700 jobs will be created in that area. And the secretary and the staff of his team have just read out from the special industries list, including logistics and innovative and other creative industries, etc. But at PE3, I believe you should be more detailed. I think we have this in mind from CH Tong, from Donald Zhang to CY Leung. We have been talking about creative industries, but we have always been asking this question. We have had creative industries for so many years, but what percentage does that take up as part of GDP? In fact, the percentage is small. And what is your projection about Takuling, Pingche, when you have driven out residents, you farm the land, and then you have high-quality private housing there, and then you would link up with Liantang, boundary checkpoint, and then you have industries. Will you be worried that in the end all this would be turned into a white elephant? You would be doing all this, you would be providing for 10,000 jobs, etc., but then the facilities would just lie idle there. And in the end, the uses would be changed so that everything would be just for private quality housing. Have you thought about this? Do you have a plan B? Secretary, Planning Department. Thank you for the question. At this stage, we are still working out how land should be delineated for different uses. We have liaised with other departments, and after talking to the relevant bureaus, we have indeed received requests that land should be reserved for those different uses. So at present, we are reserving the land, and we have to work out an overall plan about city planning, infrastructural development, etc. At this stage, we are collecting views, and after that, we'll try to see whether we'll have room to adjust and revise the plan in order to take on board the aspirations of the public. Mr. Chan, you asked about Plan B. Actually, over the last few years, we have been improving on our plan in order to respond to the views collected. And also, we have to complement the launching of policies by other bureaus, because we have to make land available for that purpose. I still have a minute or so, Chairman. I still like to ask this question. Now, you have given me an administrative answer saying that departments would like to do this and that, and the Development Bureau will have to map out the land for it. So they present the request and then you map out the land. But then where does the land come from? And also these special industries, they are supposed to be special industries. From where would they come? Is it going to be within Hong Kong or outside Hong Kong? Do you have concrete evidence or data so that the community and members will be reassured that this will not be relegated into non-industrial use? Thank you, Chairman. We definitely have no intention to rezone the land in the future for example, for the rich and famous from the mainland to be housed. As my colleague was explaining, when we do land planning, bureaus and departments will forward their requests, and as has been said, would reserve land for supporting industries with a clear advantage. Now, how advantageous they will be, what is the contribution to GDP, there are different assessments at the moment. Secondly, science and research. And number 3, I think we need to have room for adjustment between now and the total completion, which is 2032, and the first batch of housing would be made available only in 2022. In the next decade or so, there would be many changes in terms of economy and industrial development. Even if we design land for a science park, we cannot now dictate what industries would go into that science park. And also during the consultation period, we got views saying that in Ping Chair, if we can have a greater development ratio, can we have more housing for Hong Kong people? In the original design, there is this limitation on the transport front. If we have to have new ideas for transportation, then yes, there will be more room for consideration. But this is nevertheless a consultation paper, and the purpose of having a PE is such that through questions asked by your good self and others, we will be able to reflect on our planning so that the plan will be more akin to public aspirations. I think I have to control time. Just now, of course, many members are extremely interested in the topic. There are still 9 members on the list, and we still have to spend 45 minutes if we allow each 5 minutes, but then there will be 2 more agenda items to tackle. And I'll draw a line after Ms. Elizabeth Quat. James Teen. The Liberal Party is of the view that during the government of Donald Tsang, one of his major failures is that he has done a very bad job in terms of supply of land. So we have lacked land for any kind of housing development, from PRH to private housing, even to grade A, grade 2 or grade B office buildings and even hotels. The biggest problem is a lack of land. So today we really support NENT development.
Now, reclamation is not quite workable, and then if you find other places, there are other problems, but NT-Northeast is good consideration for development. Now, I think it is quite urgent. We should speed up the process. I have a couple of questions. Pages 17 and 18. Administration talk about conventional new town approach against developers' legitimate expectation. Now, developers' legitimate expectation, is true that they have too high an expectation, Was it true that there are problems with conventional new town approach? You mentioned Tin Shui Wai. People think that that mode was problematic, but for the past approaches, the developers accumulated a lot of land. Then when the government launched planning, then they partnered the government. I think that was the fastest way of coming up with house production. If the government resume land, private land, and also acquiring land also from the developers, then you have come up with the formed sites, and then you auction the land, and then the land is sold still to the developers, and it will take more than 10 years. And okay, you say that you consider that after getting comments. Now, if the developers have land, will you plan the land, say, you plan the roads up to their land, and then they may have to pay the land premium. Okay, so they pay the land premium. And then you give the public utilities, and then it will also speed up the process of the developers. Then the developers have their own capabilities, they have their own design. They come up with 10 new housing developments. It will be less than 10 years. Perhaps certain developers have flat production this year or next year, etc. The process may be faster, so public-private partnership can be implemented more quickly. You get the land premium from the developers, and then they can build the flats. Then very quickly you have flats. Secondly, page 18. For local rehousing, people's concern is not just about compensation. Now the residents say that you asked me to go elsewhere. Well, go. Where can I go? The secretary said that it is from 2012 to 2022. It may be 10 years. Okay, local rehousing. Well, how about in the interim? For 10 years, where should I go? Should I sleep on the street? So about the rehousing, how about the interim period of 10 years? Will public rental housing do the trick? Now, how about the land from the indigenous villages? They own the land, they lease the land to the tenants, etc. Well, with the kind of arrangement work, etc. So, what's your response, Secretary? About the mode or the approach of development, we're still considering that in great detail. Mr. James Tan's point is very clear. We have noted that. For local rehousing, perhaps the Permanent Secretary can answer that. Yes, for Kutong North, we have reserved land for public housing. We can meet the need for the 1,700 households. If we use the new town approach, we don't have to resume land just because we have the ODP. When we do the planning at a certain stage, when we want to get the land, then we can resume land. We follow the present policy. Then people can apply for public housing, and they can get ex gratia, pay compensation, etc. Mr. Abraham Shek and then Mr. Ronnie Tong. Well, I support Mr. James Tan's view. For public-private partnership, it can tie in with the plan of the government, and we can give flat production expeditiously. We can have supply. Now for PE2, we had public-private partnership, but on the third time, the 28th of June, public-private partnership apparently was vetoed. The government did not give a very good reason. The government simply said that it wanted to fast-track the process. But how about the criteria? If you look at the resumption of land by the government, like Choi Yun-chun, there were problems. Mr. Chairman, you are very clear about that because you liaised with the people. You solved the problem for the government. The administration wants to fast-track the process, is pulling the wool over the eyes of Hong Kong people. Now, secondly, about conventional new time approach. Actually, people don't know about the conventional new time approach. several members will know that, but for conventional approach, it's not that the government resumes all land and then it sells or auction all land. But that's not the central approach. That's not the way to do about it. Now, the land right is very important. The basic law gives the right of land ownership to the villages. Other people can also have land ownership. We have to have regard for circumstances and reason, and we have to be lawful. The government says that using the conventional approach can be faster. Government should explain conventional approach. How about like this ABC? Well, we also have conventional approach there. So what is the difference of this new conventional approach? The government should elaborate on that. Secondly, the government should come up with certain research or study results. Why is it that public-private partnership is even slower? So the government must give us reasons. We have private land, then developer can build flats. So for conventional approach, what is the timetable for conventional approach? Would it be fast enough? Meanwhile, we are using public money to resume land. How much money will be used? How do we do the calculations? The administration says that the arrangement will be better than Choi Yun-chun. Actually, we have certain principles and criteria for compensation. Is it $40 billion, or $60 billion, or $100 billion? We talk about $40 billion or $100 billion. It's a lot of public money. But we just accommodate 150,000 people. So the governments have cited figures. The figures usually are not correct. So the government should give us the results of certain studies. There are a lot of pro-government elected members are here. You just trust the government. It's not the way to go about it. The administration should convince people. It should produce figures and data. Mr. Kwok said that this is not a communist country. Can you just acquire private land? Now, what legislation will you invoke to acquire land? Is it the Land Resumption Ordinance? Land Resumption Ordinance is very clear. It's for GIC. If you need it, then you can acquire land. It's not simply to resume land and then sell it back to you. We are here in electrical. We have to be very clear about our stance. We have to let the government explain to us what it means by conventional approach. Is it non-conventional? Yes. Administration? We have come to a development panel. We have given papers. We have explained the conventional new time approach. There's the government in the NTA. For private land, the government will resume the private land. And then the government will do the allocation, will build the public facilities or public housing or private housing or commercial properties. It's very clear. Actually, for public consultation, actually for PE3, we have given you public views, say for public-private partnership, for private development's speed in terms of the development of public facilities by the government. Well, the two may not be synchronized or may not be in tandem. In other words, and in other areas, there were problems. Mr. Chairman, they should not waste our time. They should give us a paper. My questions are very clear. So what is conventional approach? Well, about so-called conventional approach. Well, it's a slip of the tongue. What do you mean by so-called, etc.? Well, this is not the final time we discuss this. There are future possibilities and opportunities. Now, conventional approach like Tin Shui Wai or Twin Moon or Chunwan or Shatin, examples can be given in terms of explaining conventional approach, in terms of new time. They should give us a paper. Okay, next, Mr. Ronnie Tong, and then Mr. Lin Leung. Thank you, Mr. Tong. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the floor. It's a big project. It's good for administration's briefing. regularly. But today the government has not come up with new information. And in answering questions, the administration is not to the point. I have two simple questions. First, now the residents can have farming rehabilitation. The secretary said that for the affected farmland is about 20-odd hectares. In the paper, talks about 54 hectares for farmland. It reserves this sort of land. So it seems that people are doing the cultivation now. For 50-odd hectares, how many hectares are being cultivated actively now? Was it true that it is already under cultivation at present? So if you want rehabilitation, then you have to drive the present farmers away. How will you solve this problem? Second question. Now for the squatters. They have been living in Northeast NT for a few generations. For squatters, they don't have rights or legal privileges. Now, Secretary, can you elaborate on that? How will you help the squatters? How will you compensate them, especially the loss in the quality of their lives? Will you amend the law so that the squatters will get more substantive compensation under the law? Mr. Lee can elaborate on rehabilitation, and the Permanent Secretary can elaborate on squatters. Yes, about farming, as far as we know, for the NDAs, for the people affected, for the farmland affected, about 22 hectares. We'll continue to update the information. But for the NDAs, for farmland to be kept, there's 54 hectares. Within the 54 hectares, some areas that is under cultivation at present. So it's not that all the hectares can be offered for rehabilitation, etc. So how much? I don't have the breakdown here. But a lot of land there is under cultivation at present. So it may not cover the 22 hectares. So for the affected people, they may not have rehabilitation. Not all of them. Now we are considering that. We are liaising with the Food and Health Bureau and the AFCD. And in the land neighboring the NDAs, we try to identify suitable farmland to provide land for the affected people who are interested in rehabilitation. But they have confidence that to have the farmland so that all the affected people will have rehabilitation. We are working along this direction. Second question, for the anti-land resumption arrangements, if the AFCD confirms that a certain person is a farmer who have farmlands reciting relocation policies, and some electoral members know that they can buy or they can rent private farmland, they can get short-term exemption, and for housing this 400 square feet, or the height is 70 square feet. Now for other farm structures, say like squatter huts, etc., if they are registered, if they can match the requirements, the eligibility for the approved person, he can apply to interim housing or public housing. Now for compensation, arrangements, etc., there's room for improvement. But for most of these people, they don't want to go to public housing because they would have done that early on. Now, for compensation, they want to keep the present quality of living. This quality is different from the quality of living in public housing. They're living in a village environment. Will the government help them? Such like rehabilitation, the same, so that the affected squatters can really have residence, so that they can live in rural areas.
During PE3, we heard residents' aspirations clearly, and we are trying to minimize the impact. Thank you, Alan Leung, and then Gary Fan. Alan, Chairman, I'd like to debate with the administration. Slide number 13. It is titled Public Concerns, Hong Kong Shenzhen Unification and Selling Out Hong Kong. In paragraph 12 of the paper, the administration is saying that such accusations are groundless. Let me tell you why this is well-founded, and I'd like to see how the Secretary will respond. Right now, are we talking about integration or non-integration between Hong Kong and Shenzhen? Sometimes we talk about integration, and sometimes it is said that there is not such an indication. Maybe the Secretary can say for sure whether there is integration or not integration. And secondly, you talk about to meet Hong Kong's housing needs. Information shows that around Shenzhen, all the way to the new MDAs, it will take you half an hour for you to cross the boundary, and our next item will allow this to be done. But if you go from here, Chairman, the most conservative estimate is 1.5 hours without having to wait for transportation, not in your private car, I mean public transport, Chairman. If you talk about education, if you have a higher education city, it seems it is going to be devoted for mainland students more than Hong Kong students. And talk about Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people, this is just empty talk. We see new details about that. And also the ratio between public and private housing continues to evolve. It is never for certain. You say Hong Kong does not have enough land, and I heard from the Secretary last Wednesday that 391 hectares are there, but not all of them can be used for housing. Let me just say 50%, because you did not tell me how many. In other words, about 200 hectares can be used in the urban area. It is like 10 Tai Kushing or 10 Victoria Parks. And according to the plot ratio of Tai Kushing, you can house 400,000 people. So why do you go for the difficult, not the easy part? All these together would give us the backing for such an accusation. And on slide number 13, you say you need land to be reserved for promoting Hong Kong economic development. Many members asked about what industries, what economy are you talking about, but all that has not fetched a concrete answer. So I'd like to tell you that the propositions of Hong Kong Shenzhen unification, turning Hong Kong red and setting up Hong Kong, all that is founded. Is that right, Secretary? Chairman, that is a misunderstanding. It's a big misunderstanding. First of all, as we said, housing in the NDAs will be for Hong Kong people, and public housing will take up half or more of all housing. And also there will be Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people. At this stage, we cannot say 90% or 100% of the land will be used for Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people, because we are talking about a decade or so away, and there will be changes in the market. So we have to monitor the situation clearly, carefully, and then we do the right thing at the right time. So how big will be the scale for Hong Kong property, for Hong Kong people? We must be flexible. As for industrial development, if you look at Greater China, we have Pearl River Delta, the Yangtze River Delta, we have the Bohai and the surrounding areas, and we have the northeast of the territory. And then we have Shanghai and Shenzhen as the leading cities. If in Hong Kong we just consider Hong Kong and not our position within PLD and how we can leverage on the advantage, we are going to lose. Internationally, if we talk about economic development, even if we do not look at China, just look at Singapore. It is entering into alliances with ASEAN countries. When a city competes with other places, you should not just look at the city itself, but the region. That is the economic angle. And also, you asked how much land we have. Mr. Alan Leong, even half of the 391.5 hectares can be used for housing, then given the density of Tai Kushing, we can house 400,000 people. But if you look at land sold in the past 2 years, you will see that the density of development cannot be compared to the past. because many plots are not that big and they cannot be used for large-scale developments. And also people look for quality living, and the plot ratio is lower. Even if you look at Kai Tak, that's the case. So we need to open up land resources for the provision of housing for Hong Kong people. Thank you. Now, I was talking about Shenzhen Hong Kong unification. I was asking the Secretary whether he can say something with certainty. Secretary, as I said, this is a new town for Hong Kong people. From Hong Kong's economic development angle, we must consider Hong Kong's strategic position in the region. Gary Fan. Thank you, Chairman. I have a similar question as Mr. Alan Leong's. Secretary, if your response is that this is a new town for Hong Kong people to meet Hong Kong people's housing needs, then why can't you give us concrete figures to allay Hong Kong people's worries? After consulting the people for 4 years, why is it that only in the last 2 weeks of these 4 years will you introduce the Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people principle? If you will apply that to 80, 90, 100% of housing to be provided in the NDAs in NENT, then people will not have any worries as to whether there will be Hong Kong-Shenzhen unification. Earlier on, a few months ago, together with Mr. James Teen, we were at a forum, and I asked him whether he had a similar view with the administration on this project, and I was asking him whether he was aware of the proportion of private housing to be sold to people outside Hong Kong. He thought 20%, but then it was actually at 44%. In a particular resident estates, over 60% of the units were bought by non-Hong Kong people. Therefore, Hong Kong people are worried about making use of large pieces of land in NENT for non-Hong Kong people. That worry is quite warranted. So, Secretary, you said that we have to consider our strategic position. Then does it mean Hong Kong-China integration? Why is it that we have to make use of very precious land resources in Hong Kong to provide housing which will not be bought by Hong Kong people? Secretary, the strategic consideration is such that when we consider Hong Kong's economic development, we must place Hong Kong as part of the region so that we can give full play to our competitive edge. Mr. Gary Fan mentioned the Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people principle and why we cannot pinpoint 80%, 90% or 100%. As I said, between now and 2032, which is the year for completion of the project, there will be a lot of changes in the market. If we now say for sure, with any certainty, a certain percentage, then I would say that I would be acting in an irresponsible manner if I give you that guarantee. And you remember it was at the end of August or beginning of September that the CE announced this Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people principle. When the consultation paper was released on the 28th of June, there has not been this concept of Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people. It was announced by the new term of government, by the CE, at the beginning of September. You still have time? Any follow-up? If not, next one, Michael Teen and Elizabeth Quat, and then I'll draw a line there because we have spent 2 hours on the issue. Michael Tien. Thank you. I have a few questions, please. The implementation approach. My understanding is that we have always had the PPP that was in the first 2 consultation papers, but now it was changed to CNTA. Well, the Secretary was explaining that actually it could simply be put as a compulsory land resumption. As Mr. Ibrahim Sheikh said, the law states that compulsory land resumption must be backed by overriding common interest for a common facility. I'd like to find out about this. It is said that developers have been assembling land, and if Incidentally, you need to resume land from the hands of developers for common facilities. Well, I can understand that because the law allows you to do it. However, what about the rest of the land which will not be compulsorily resumed by you for the provision of PRH? If you still go for compulsory resumption and then you resume the land and auction it out, then you will be going against your original concept. I'd like to know, if indeed you go for compulsory land resumption, will you just go for resuming land from private developers just for the development of common or public facilities and leave the rest for PPP? I think that is more reasonable. Secondly, the 52,000 new jobs, 26,000 for new special industries and commerce and innovation, etc. And then the rest would be for Greg. So I think 10 years down the road, he will not be in his present position. So I'd like to know more about the 52,000. I think you can be sure about providing local services because you have to serve the people there. And you said that 26,000, which is half, if enterprises do not support you because they cannot hire hands to do jobs, what will be the land for? As a responsible government, you should think about such contingencies. Will you be providing housing, PRH, as a fallback? And lastly, the Northern Link. When I was chairman of the KCRC, it was supposed to go ahead, but it has not been constructed. Well, the CE said it's an important rail and it will be constructed, and then a Development Bureau and Transport and Housing Bureau seem to be passing the buck to each other. What is the relative timetable for Northern Link? Implementation approach PS. Actually, I had wanted to say this when I answered Mr. Abraham Sheikh, but I did not have the time to. Michael Teen's proposal will be difficult to implement because it's difficult for us to identify any plot just for private development. There may be land for ancestral halls, which private developers cannot resume or assemble, and maybe the title papers have been lost, and therefore we can only act under the land resumption ordinance. And if land resumed under the law will be given back to private developers for use, we might have to go through certain procedures. That is why we have thought about going for CNTA. But as Mr. James Teen was asking, saying that according to one slide at a PE, it is said that the proposals might not be in line with legitimate expectations. Well, we have to be concerned about this point because if litigation will be instituted, the development timetable might be held up. So we'll listen to all views before making a final decision. Mr. Lee, Chairman, Mr. Teen asked about jobs. My understanding about this question is that we are reserving land for special industries and commercial research and development sites. At this stage, we are reserving land for that purpose. So at this stage, we do not have a fallback option. But in terms of planning, from initial planning to actual implementation, that is a long process. And it is not surprising for us to see changes in that process. So there is always the flexibility to bring in adjustment. And the factors for consideration would be the constraints of the infrastructural development and also the land uses around this area. And then we can give consideration to all these factors.
So you're talking about the future, is that right? How about Northern Link? I've asked about that for 12 years. Would you go ahead with Northern Link? Mr. Chairman, when we answered other members, I would like to... I mentioned that, but I can repeat that. For the NAND DNAs, there's no inclusion of Northern Link here. During public consultation, we listened to different views. Just now, as I said, for certain views, they say developing Taco Lane. Perhaps for the development density, we can consider that we can let more Hong Kong people reside there. But for the present traffic layout, it can't support that. If we have more people living there, including Northern Link, etc., we have to consider the transport infrastructure. Whether we're talking about new jobs or this point, it goes back to what some members mentioned. For these three NDAs, we go ahead with the three of them all together at the same time, or we will do it in phases. We do it in phases, then perhaps in the process, we can look at the actual changes of the situation, and then we can adjust our pace, etc. We can have more room for maneuver, etc. Thank you. Mr. Leung Kok-hong, the last member on this item. Mr. Michael Tian is very good. If we misfire, okay, in a snooker game, then what will we do? Now for residence barrier for cyberport. Not cyberport has been lost. It becomes a residence barrier. For Science Park, it becomes another residential development. It's not the first time. You misfired, and then our ball really rolled into the back. The black ball was dropped. It's not the first time. You always said that you develop certain things, and then that industry was lost, and then it turned into some sort of real estate property. Mr. Secretary, please go back and check these bad examples. Okay? These examples can be my motto. Then I'll look at them. So the misfiring incidents. How about the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge? It's also a white elephant. So how about the traffic capacity, traffic flow of Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge? We spend a lot of money. Well, we developed the western part of Hong Kong, but now we switch back to the eastern part. I know that. Xie Tong talk about the Echo Park. Well, it did not materialize because the developers were not interested, okay, in 2003. And then another consultation is in 2008. The DAB led a team to the Shenzhen municipal mayor. But the mayor now, Xu Zhongkang, is subject to stipulation of time and place in terms of sanctions by the government. Xu Zhongkang was an important figure, but the DAB actually met the high officials in Shenzhen. Shenzhen's integration depends on us. Now the express rail link is another example, is to integrate with Shenzhen. Okay, you talk about a lot of things. Talk about job opportunities. Say, look at Twin Moon. Twin Moon was catering for people who have their jobs in Yunnan. Ms. An Shikai was involved there. And at that time, it was, the secretary, you were still studying. It was earlier on. Okay, Hong Kong people want residential land. Then you produce housing. Hong Kong people want industries to create jobs. Then you do it accordingly. But now you have NDAs. Say in Wan Chai, you want to cater for the workforce. Okay, you try to be interested in that, then we'll respond. Okay, we go along. Okay, for public ratio is 43 to 57. Now you say that. Is it about the number of residential units, or is it about area? I think your information is not comprehensive. According to my view, I think for public housing land it's just 20%. For private land, I think it's 80%. Is my view. If you adjust the area, then for 43 to 57, it's the other way around. It's 65 to 35. Please do not deceive Hong Kong people. In terms of area, how many hectares are reserved for private housing? How many hectares are reserved for public housing? That kind of ratio is authentic, is genuine. Otherwise, it's meaningless. Well, because in my election campaign, I knew that I went to a public housing estate. A lot of people live there. I think you were telling a lie. I think 20% of the area is for public housing. Is true. Is it true or not? Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman, for public housing and private housing, in terms of number of units or the amount of land is set out in the paper, 43 to 57. There's the number of units for area is not that high because the density is different. Earlier on, Mr. Chairman, we said that we are reviewing the ratio of public housing. It may be increased. Say the doghouse of a rich person is bigger than a poor person's house. It's not a debate, Mr. Leung. It's not a debate. It's just simple mathematics, simple arithmetic. 20% of the land, and then you build 43% of housing. Is that right? Now for public housing, the plot ratio is higher, is nearer to the railway station or the town center. For public housing and private housing, in the regional planning, there was a difference. Actually, when I answered previous members' questions, I said that we will review the situation, we review private housing. Now, at present, we have low-density housing. It may be changed to small, medium-sized units suitable for Hong Kong people. And for development density, it is being reviewed. Thank you. Okay, let's talk about this way. 43% of the area, we build it for public housing. 57% of the area, then is private housing. Then I'll accept that. Okay, for this topic, we have spent 2 hours on that. More than 20 members spoke. The government has given detailed answers. But of course, the answers may not satisfy all members. This is not the last time that we talk about that. For land NDAs, we have future opportunities to talk about that. So we'll have a wrap-up discussion on this item, okay? Now, for the last meeting, 2 members thought that we should hold a public hearing on this topic to listen to the views of the public. Now, members, do you think that we should hold a public hearing in a short time, or should we wait until new proposals from the government before holding a public hearing? What do members think? Yes, members? Any new suggestions? No? Yes? Mr. Chairman, I think at LegCo we should provide a platform for residents and various members of the community. Or even the developers, they have quite a lot of farmland. Perhaps they're interested in coming. You should provide a platform. So you think that we should have a public hearing. Members? Okay, then the Secretary will make arrangements in terms of the date and the time. Thank you. The next item. Agenda item 5, PWP item number 13GB, Lantang Heng Yun Wei Boundary Control Point and associated works. We invite the officials to come in. Welcome the officials. The name list is tabled before members. I will not introduce the officials one by one. Can the administration take us through this item and give us an introduction? Then we use PowerPoint. Yes. Now, before my colleague introduces the item, I would like to give an overall introduction for the new electrical panel on developments. About the progress on the Liantang and Heng Yunwai, we hope to complete it in 2018 for the BCP. There are 3 parts. Now, first is about the site formation for the BCP and the construction of connecting road. And secondly is the BCP buildings and associated facilities. And thirdly, improvement of Shenzhen River, Stage 4, and reprovisioning of boundary patrol road. From January 2009 up to July this year, LegCo has approved funding for 5 times $17 billion for most of the works. Now, for the progress for these 3 parts. Now, first about site formation for the BCP and the construction of connecting road in July this year. We got the funding, and for the site formation work is put out the tender. Early next year it will start. And for the connecting road, it will be put to tender as well. The second part about BCP buildings and associated facilities. Now we are applying for funding for the terminal building, the design of it, and also the investigation work. And when the design is completed, we'll come back to LegCo for funding, the last sum for the passenger terminal building, the building cost. The third part, improvement of Shenzhen River and reprovisioning of boundary patrol road. Now, for the patrol road, for the work, we got funding in March this year. Work started. The progress is moved. Now we come to apply for another item. It's regulation of Shenzhen River Stage 4 for Liantang BCP. There's an overall progress. Now, ASD and the DSD will brief members on the 2 specific related items. Now, 2 items applying for funding. The first thing, BCP construction and the design investigations of the building works, etc. is $180 million for the cost. Early to 2013, the design work will start, and early to 2015, the design work will be completed. If things go smoothly, at the end of 2014, we apply for cost for construction. And the second item, regulation of Shenzhen River Stage 4, the building works, is $595.1 million. We hope that in August 2013 will start. It will be completed in September 2017. Now, I would like to mention this. For the BCP terminal building, earlier on in 2010, to stimulate the creativity and to attract public participation, Hong Kong government and the Shenzhen governments jointly held the terminal building concept design international contest. At the end of December 2010, we started the contest. We received more than 170 entries from more than 10 territories. After 2 rounds of vetting, for the adjudicators, for the professional category and the open category, we have winning entries. In September 2011, at the prize presentation ceremony, we announced the results. On the right-hand side, you have the professional category winner. The title is Light Images, Flow, and BCP. Now, the Hong Kong government and the Shenzhen government, in principle, agreed with the design of the terminal building.
We'll also make reference to the concept of the winning entry to design the shape and form of the building. So we will meet the requirements of functions of the two parties, and we hope that there will be a uniform design for the terminal building. In terms of design and investigation for the BCP and relevant activities, the two governments set up a project design and operational technology group for Liantang and Xiangyanhui. And from the Shenzhen side, we have the director of the relevant departments. In Hong Kong, we have the PAS from Security Bureau as the chair, and we also have directors from the other departments as members. We'll be discussing and formulating the overall design and operational options of the BCP. They will hold regular meetings to follow up on and also to coordinate design work. I'd like to talk about the construction of the BCP. We have the goods vehicle clearance area and also passenger goods vehicle clearance. This is on the ground level. This will include all the cargo or goods vehicle clearance. There will be the fixed X-quang or X-ray building. They will follow the arrow to go to Shenzhen, and those incoming ones will come in from Shenzhen through these checking areas to come into Hong Kong. On the ground level, we also have the PTI and also non-cross-boundary school bus pickup and drop-off area. This is to facilitate passengers who go to Hong Kong or Shenzhen. Also at the BCP, you can see that we also have pedestrian subway linking up the BCP and Lin Ma Heng Road. So passengers and residents will be able to make use of the subway to come to the new BCP. And then we have a public car park at or below the podium. This is for private car pickup and drop off. So people can drive their own cars to the BCP. And then one level up the podium, we have the passenger terminal building, the cross-boundary school bus and coach pickup and drop-off area. We also have outbound, inbound clearance facilities for people coming into Hong Kong or going to Shenzhen. That is the construction of the BCP, and I'd like to defer to the DSD to introduce to you about the river training project. The two governments have been cooperating. We have finished 3 phases of training of Shenzhen River, measuring 13.5 kilometers. And we have basically tackled the water quality problem of the river. In the 4th stage, we'll be looking at the river between Pingyun River and Pek Fu Shan, and we will be making use of the concepts of ecological preservation, and we're preserving the natural course of the river so as to preserve its ecological value. We will preserve the existing bends of the river and to provide a natural environment conducive to plants. And also, we are going to have an area which will help to control floods you will see this schematic illustration here of the water storage basin. So we'll try to keep the area green and functional. Thank you. According to Rule 33A of Rules of Procedure, at a meeting of the panel, members should not move any motion on issues or any amendment to the motions, or even speak on any issues with which the member has a direct or indirect pecuniary interest. Can I please remind members that if members do have direct or indirect pecuniary interests related to the item under discussion, members should disclose the nature of such interest before they speak. Now this is the time for questions, and members will have 5 minutes each, including a reply from the administration. 4 members have registered to speak. They are Kenneth Chan, Lo Wai Kwok, Albert Chan, and Fernando Zhang. And also Chan Han Pan, and also Yip Kwok Him. Kenneth Chan, please. Thank you, Chairman. Before I came to this meeting, here in the electrical building, I met some residents from the area who traveled very far to come to electrical, and one of the elderly persons had waited very long, and I'm sure they are now listening into the meeting in the public gallery. I think they are aware of the project, but they must have been taken aback in that their homes will be affected. But if I read the paper of the administration, it is said that there has been public consultation. And as Mr. Fernando Zhang mentioned a moment ago, you might consult the rural committees or village organizations. But then villagers themselves felt that this was something that had been hidden from them. Now, of course, I may not be in the full picture, but since some villagers or residents did have traveled far to complain to us, then I hope you will also give them a reply through an answer to my question. Why is it that in this issue, when residents are affected because of the alignment or other projects, and they are going to lose their homes? So what have you done in this respect? Secondly, cooperation between Hong Kong and Guangzhou, and also the joint Hong Kong-Shenzhen Joint Task Force on Boundary District Development. I believe this project, of course, is the task of this task force. For us, we have to provide the funding for this project, but what about meeting records of this joint task force? Can that be made known to us so that we understand more the thinking of this task force? And number 3, something directly related to the funding request, and that is the Shenzhen River project. In paragraph 4 of the paper, you talk about a trusting arrangement or commissioning arrangement. I can understand and I can see that the project would be undertaken and also tendered by the Shenzhen government. I have some questions here. How can we monitor the project then? You said you would continue to monitor the project, but after we have given the funding support, how effective would the monitoring will be? And I'm aware of the last line of this paragraph. It is said that all the previous 3 stages that have been completed have been subject to similar developments. I'd like to ask you, what similar arrangement are you talking about? What is our experience about the previous 3 stages? About the consultation, the CEDD will answer. And Mr. Ip Kwai Hang. Thank you, Chairman. As the members said, in September 2008, the two parties announced for the first time that there would be a Liantang BCP built. And then in 2009 and 2010, we took part in many consultative meetings, including at the North District Council or Board, and then the Taipo District Council, and Shanshai Takuling Shuttlecock Rural Committee, and also Hang Yi Cook, and also at villages. When the connecting road or the BCP might affect the residents, we did go to consult the residents concerned. This is a designated project under the EIAO, so we had to follow the ordinance and consult the public on the project. We also consulted the ACE, and then where land resumption is concerned, our project has also been gazetted under the Roads Use and Compensation Ordinance, and we have received views as a result of the gazettal, and we have considered those views. So we can say that we have received the support of district councils and rural committees. We'd like to thank them. Thank you. Next one, Lo Wai Kwok, and then Albert Chan. Lo Wai Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. My first question is related to Mr. Kenneth Chan's question, because phase 4 of the Shenzhen River training would be the responsibility of the Shenzhen government party, and tendering will also be done by them. You said that there would be a joint task force for monitoring the project, and you have also said that all the previous 3 stages have been subject to similar arrangements. My question is, what measures can the SARG take to make sure that qualified project contractors would be given fair treatment, and how you can ensure that the project will measure up to standards in Hong Kong? Since you have got similar experience in the past, did the two governments differ in opinion in the past? If yes, what mechanism has been used to resolve the different views? And number 2, as we were talking about NENT just now, here this BCP at Liantang Hang Yun Wai is actually very close to the NDAs in NENT of the last item. Did the government review the road network and its capacity to see whether you can tie in with the use of the BCP and growth in population? Actually, the Shenzhen River Regulation Office has been entrusted with the project. Well, it is a boundary river, and we can not only work on it ourselves. The arrangement is the two parties will sit down and we go for the higher standards between the two places. We have got a consultant for stage 4, and the consultant will follow the technical standards of the two places. The tendering process will be such that contractors in Hong Kong and Shenzhen can put in bids. They are subject to the same assessment criteria, and actually in stage 3, a Hong Kong contractor won the bid. And about the BCP, which is near to NENT, in 2008, when we jointly announced that the BCP would be built, the function was made very clear, and that is to tackle traffic between Hong Kong and Guangzhou east, and that is to meet the need for cross-boundary freight and passenger flow. The connecting road would connect the BCP traffic to our highway network, and there will also be highway network on the mainland to connect it to the highway network of the entire country. And for the road, if there is reserve capacity, if we can develop areas along it, we can consider that as well.
Mr. Kenneth Chen mentioned the joint working group. Actually, after every meeting, there is a press release. Mr. Albert Chen, about development, it involves 3 kinds of landholders, 3 different classes, different interests. Okay, private land. Okay, the indigenous villages may be involved. Secondly, the licensed housing buildings and also the squatters. Now, for the financial consortia, we are not worried about them because they can be taken care of. For licensed buildings and the squatters, they experience a plight. For squatters on private land, actually, their life is made difficult. Paragraph 12 of the paper talks about farmland, etc. So about the 3 categories of people that I mentioned, how many people are there? Especially for private land, they want to drive away the people, then they can pocket their money, because compensation is quite substantial. So is it true that we have reasonable arrangements for the disadvantaged people? Please answer this first. About compensation, Mr. Chairman, I would like to reiterate a point. For the past development panel meetings, actually we discussed that in great detail. For the compensation packages and the monetary sums in July next year, actually they were endorsed. And today, the Lands Department is dealing with the affected people. Can you give us some sort of diagram of the categories of the 3 categories that I mentioned? How many people are there so that we can have a clear picture? Because towards the end, that a lot of people have conflicts. The government said that their approach is reasonable, but the disadvantaged people are threatened by the trials. They are driven away by the powerful people, etc. I don't want to see that. Mr. Chairman, I don't have the detailed data here because for the application this time it's not about compensation. After the meeting, I can provide the information to Mr. Chen. Another question. Now, for the BCP designs, actually, in the diagram I didn't see it. In the past, I always mentioned that, okay, for the BCP, we want to give convenience to Hong Kong people. The private cars can take people there, and then they can drop people, and then the minibuses can also go there. I can't see the pickup or the drop-off points on the Hong Kong side. It was said that Hong Kong vehicles can go there, so how about the pickup or drop-off points? I can't see that on the diagram. But the ASD, colleagues can talk about that. For the Lantong BCP, there's the first BCP where people and the vehicles can go there. The ASD. Yes. Yes, you have to go to the PWSC. If you don't have comprehensive information, it's very difficult. Actually, the information previously has been given to members, say about the compensation packages. They were endorsed, and in July, the electrical endorsed that. Yes, we had discussions, but I don't have details. Yes, you can prepare the information to the PWSC. No, because you talk about 300, then it may be 3,000. Perhaps this is CDD can elaborate on that. Mr. Chen mentioned the scenario where the public can go to the PCP, as the Permanent Secretary said. For this PCP, there's the first PCP where ordinary people can use private cars to go there, and they can also take other kinds of transport to go there. Now, today our aim is to apply for funding. It's about the design of the BCP. If members support this, then when we have got the money, then the ASD will launch the detailed design. But for the BCP, at the ground level, the light green part here is a public interchange, transport interchange. For the details, we have not launched the details yet, so we may not have a very specific or detailed situation here. Okay, I'll wait for the detailed design, but you must have policy guidelines. I can't see that private cars can go there. How about the vehicular flow that you estimate? You must give the vehicular flow, okay? How many vehicles per hour? Before you go to FC, you should give us information. Now, the diagram does not indicate that. Now, simply put, for BCP for the car park is not to cope with extra vehicles. For most of the people at this BCP, I think people take the cross-boundary buses. They go to Shenzhen. For our own side of the BCP, for people flow and vehicular flow, it has been set is 30,000 people, 17,800 vehicles. We have cross-boundary buses, private cars, etc., cross-boundary school buses, etc. And basically speaking, we want a car park to deal with certain people, because vehicles and people can go there directly. They may not choose to use the cross-boundary buses. They may take private cars. So we have 400 parking spaces for citizens. For 400 parking spaces, we think that is adequate. Thank you. Now for our meeting, actually, we have 3 items. We hope to end the meeting by 5:30, but we still haven't finished this. So I think we extend this meeting by 45 minutes. We will finish the meeting at 6:15. Any objection? Okay, we extend the meeting to 6:15. Mr. Fernando Cheung. Yes. Your leadership is able leadership. Perhaps we cannot finish discussion, just like the NAN's NDAs. There are a lot of questions. Yes, we cannot finish the discussion, of course. And Mr. Chairman, it's also related to NAN's NDAs. Actually, it's really putting through the relationship between anti-Hong Kong, anti-Northeast Hong Kong and Shenzhen. You say that is the key opening, you can say. Then there will be a lot of activities to and fro between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. According to the paper, according to the joint working group, the joint task force, they had a report, they had an announcement. They say that after commissioning, about passengers and vehicles is more than 50,000. Now, Mr. Chairman, for this sort of study document, they say that for the cross-boundary traffic assessment, now for Shenzhen residents, they can enjoy similar treatment as Hong Kong residents. That is, they can hold certain documents, they can come to Hong Kong, that is multiple entries without a visa. So it's supposed that Shenzhen residents can come to Hong Kong without visa. They can multiple entries. then we have 30,000 people and then 17,000 vehicles. For this sort of assumption, is it true that this is already a policy? About visa-free arrangements, what is the scope of it? About this kind of work or project? Have we had public discussion about this sort of data? About this kind of working group or task force? There is announcements every time after the meeting, but there is no public consultation. And people really cannot take part. It is said that there will be a lot of economic benefits. 14.3 billion Hong Kong dollars in terms of economic benefit. For this work and related works, he's talking about 16.25 billion dollars. Not just about this item, it's about overall works. So actually, all the works are interrelated. For the present two items, they are minor, actually not very minor. We're talking about over $100 million. But we are talking about the development of the BCP, and we have assumptions. The assumptions may have vast impact on Hong Kong, but there is no public consultation. For this sort of items, how should we deal with them? Okay, if we endorse it, so for regulation of river, the discussion is quite parochial. It's not to the point. And yesterday, actually today's newspapers report that some residents are affected, certain villages are affected. They get a raw deal. Certain people affected. I hope that the complaints division of Let's Go may handle that. As for compensation packages, etc., we have to deal with them. But the whole project is so massive. I'm not very interested in asking about the details concerning the alignment or regulation of the river. We should look at Lantang and Hengyun Way. The government should give us a full account, and we must conduct consultation. We should hold a public hearing so that the public can have input. Otherwise, if we approve things in a peaceful manner, then the government may say that, well, we have endorsed certain things already, and if we do not endorse the present proposal, then it's a waste, etc. So I'm not interested in asking questions. We should look at it in overall terms. Okay, so you want a public hearing. I would like to respond to that. For 2008, for the Shenzhen Hong Kong authorities, we announced that from 2008, actually we have been coming to the development panel to consult LegCo, and the relevant departments have done consultation in the districts. From January 2009 up to July this year, $17 billion have been endorsed, and some works have started. Today is about the site coverage works. Okay, Mr. Chan Hangpan and Mr. Yip Pok Kim. Thank you. Now, in the past, for the Shenzhen Western Corridor, for commissioning, there, at that time, the community thought that the patronage level of the BCP there would not be great. Perhaps the criticism should be retracted because a lot of people actually use the Western Corridor. But about the Lantang BCP, is the only BCP, the first BCP, where vehicles can go there directly. Say, if you look at Lok Ma Chau, well, a lot of car parks are full. People have to take a trip to go there. Still, it's quite popular. Now, for the 400 parking spaces, will they be enough?
How did you come up with this figure of 400? That's the first point. Secondly, if the 400 car parks will not be able to take care of demand, what is your fallback position? Where can you find extra space for car parking so that there would not be traffic congestion? Secondly, the paper says that $60 billion would be spent on Shenzhen River training. Does it include the handling of sludge? And how many tons of sludge are we talking about, and how will it be handled? Yes. Before I answer Mr. Chen's question, I'd like to briefly respond to Mr. Fernando Zheng's assumption. At Liantang, there will not be co-location, so there will not be any visa arrangement. As for parking spaces, we must work with assumptions in doing our planning. According to the Sentin car park at Lok Ma Chau, there are 1,000 spaces, and the Lok Ma Chau designed use is such that it should be 100,000 per day, but now the design here is for 30,000 a day, so 400 parking spaces should be enough. If indeed many cars will come in, there will be display panels along the way telling drivers or motorists about the traffic situation. As for sludge, may I ask DSD to answer? Thank you, Chairman. We expect to see 68,000 cubic meters of sludge. According to the EIAO, the relevant sludge would be deposited at East Sha Chau. But you have not answered my question about extra parking spaces that can be provided. If the car park will be saturated, do you have any other plans to provide parking spaces? We don't have that plan yet. We have to see the operation of the BCP first. What about any land put aside for such purposes? Well, they say it is a hypothetical question, so I believe they have not reserved land for that purpose. Ip Kwok Him and then KK Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. We have started to discuss Liantang BCP in 2008. New members said that there has not been any consultation on the BCP. I am surprised to hear that. Mr. Kenneth Chan, you're a member of the Civic Party, which took part in the discussion in 2008. When I was talking about residents, the residents have traveled far to come to LegCo. I was asking the question on their behalf. Chairman, can I please continue? Indeed, funds have been approved and the project is underway. Just now, Mr. Fernando Zheng said we should restart consultation, but this is not possible since the project is already underway and funding support has been given. As for consultation with residents, in terms of the NT, villages are represented by the village representative, but indeed, in every village we have a dual representation system, one representing indigenous and the other non-indigenous villages. So in terms of representation, it should not be that non-indigenous villages did not get to know about this. My understanding is that in terms of compensation and consultation, many villages already registered their strong views, and their strong views have been taken on board one by one. But I'm sure stakeholders and interested parties would continue to talk about compensation, but I think that is only natural. So let members be clear about what the LegCo has done in the past and what the administration has done. My question: is that you gave us a detailed introduction about the training of the river. It is now proposed that the level should be upgraded to withstand a rainstorm with a return period of 1 in 50 years. But in 2008, we had a rainstorm with a return period of 1 in 100 years. Now, what if that happens again? Then Liantang BCP will be flooded. Or at least it will be operationally affected. Will it? And at the end of 2010, the SARG and Shenzhen held a design competition together for the terminal building. Does the funding this time around include facilities within the passenger terminal building? PS. Can I ask DSD to answer the question of a rainstorm with a return period of 1 in 50 years? This design standard, Chairman, is the standard for major rivers. In our detailed design, we will leave some leeway. Even if the rainstorm is over a return period of 1 in 50 years, if it doesn't exceed 300 meters, then we can still cope with it. We also have water storage basins which will release the flood. But this is a standard way of talking about our design. But can you give the guarantee that if it is a rainstorm with a return period of 1 in 100 years, there will not be flooding? The two sides will have to look at rainstorms. But for Hong Kong rivers, usually we use the design standard of rainstorm with a return period of 1 in 50 years. Now, if you talk about rainstorm with a return period of 1 in 100 years, it depends on the duration of the downpour and where it takes place. But we follow Hong Kong standards, and if we maintain the river well, there will be a low percentage of flooding possibilities. The design competition, if funding is supported this time around, will commission a consultant who will continue with the initial and in-depth design, and he will draw the project plans, including facilities to be installed in the terminal building. Then we'll work out the tendering papers. And then when the bids come in, we will assess them. Next one, KK Kwok, Chairman. We know that the last term of LegCo supported this project, but Mr. Ip criticized new LegCo members. I think that is very ungentlemanly. You are returned by a functional constituency. You can always keep your seat, so you should not criticize others. Members should have the freedom of speech at meetings of LegCo. I don't know whether some members should be ashamed of themselves, but never mind. Coming back to the Liantang BCP, $17 billion. According to the paper, there will be 17,850 car trips and then 30,000 passenger trips. That was in 2003. All the figures, I believe, have been or are outdated. You have not even prepared for 1/6 of the expected capacity. I would rather we pour public money down the drain. You are working for legacy or signature projects. Tonight, we are going to talk about the old age living allowance, but we have also spent a lot of money on this design competition. And in this design competition, we are going to spend 300 million on it. And in the end, if the Lantang BCP would be like the Western Corridor, again, you aim high, but you do not measure up to the expected target. And which official will have to be held responsible for the wrong estimation? Is it you? Is it going to be you, PS? You have time. PS? The design year is 2031. All design must be based on assumptions. If we look at 2031, there should be 30,000 passenger trips and 17,850 car trips. Then how can you explain to us the capacity at Western Corridor? Actually, Shenzhen Bay has not been opened for too long, and we also worked with long-term projections. So you're not answering me. I'm saying it seems you are spending so much money, and in the end, what are we going to end up with? The dollar sign is like $17 billion. I think public money should only be spent where it should be spent. Someone has to be responsible for wrong estimations, and I'm giving you the opportunity to tell us that if indeed what results from the project would be very different from what you forecast, then some officials should be held responsible. Well, we are looking at a long-term projection, and we do not expect to see a lot of difference between design and reality. Leung Kwok-hung, well, certainly the PS is rather loquacious. He must, of course, he might not have to be responsible because he might have gone to heaven by 2031. Look at the Airport Express Rail. It is said that the passenger load would rise together with a rise in air passenger trips. But as you know, the Airport Express is lowering its fares and giving concessions every day. This is a simple logic. Chen Han-pan was saying many people use the Western Corridor. Please, if you have driven a car, you will use the Western Cross Harbor crossing. It is expensive, but it is much smoother because they say the toll may be more expensive, but you save on fuel. But you know, this is reality already, and you still expect a miracle to happen. Come on. Dongguan is turning into a ghost city. I know people who are in business. Look, I of course respect you technocrats, but you have been too cocky, so people asked you that question. You say, I'm an official. If people ask me to do the design, I'll just design it. So it's actually not within your purview. Do you know anything? I'd like to ask you something. The price tag, it's very expensive. You say it will bring in $14.3 billion, but that is not your purview. You make use of $16.2 billion. Well, I don't mind the small change, but you say you will bring in $14.3 billion in terms of economic benefit by 2030. Why do you want to do it? You put in 16.2 and you get $14.3 billion. You have to explain to us why the economic benefit would be lower than what you put in. And secondly, you say there will not be co-location, but you're wrong. Well, you may be right, but the question is, your assumption is such that Shenzhen residents would be given parity treatment. They could come in without a visa if they have the relevant certification and identity documents, and they could use the e-channels. Well, it's the same thing happening in Shengshui starting in April. So either you are right at the beginning, So your answer is correct. By having non-co-location, then you are solving the problem. So it is an open admittance or admission on your part that your original estimate is wrong. I'm not being unfair to you. Miss Margaret Ng has left LegCo, and she asked you how you could have co-location for the XRL line. And you were besieged by protesters, and you said you would answer her next time. Now she has left the LegCo, and she cannot have the chance to be answerable to the public, and the other official who gave her that answer is no longer here. So you cannot have a co-location now at XRL. It's being built. You are building the station already.
I'm not sure if the People's Liberation Army or the National Security personnel will come. I don't know. But anyway, talk about separate location clearance. Is it true? Is it related to this item here, project here? If you do not know the answer, of course, you can't answer. Can you answer me? About Hang Yunwei, BCP of a land town, BCP here, there's separate location clearance. But can people come without visa? You should answer that. I've already answered the question, Mr. Chairman. Just a follow-up. We do not know the answer, then you don't have to answer me. But we talk about separate location. If you mislead people because of your ignorance, then it's very disastrous. You have already answered the question. You are not happy with the answer. The answer has been given. You want to answer that? Well, I've answered that, Mr. Chairman. We still have another agenda item. We have to wrap up the session on this item. How should we deal with that? I want two pieces of information. One is traffic and transport. How about the detailed design guidelines? It's very important. If the scope of the guidelines is not suitable for our needs, then the results will be different. But they say that they will give you the details afterwards. If they don't give you the information, then you can ask questions at the open sitting. We talk about separate location clearance. We talk about 30,000 people and 17,000 vehicles. We say that there is an assumption of coming without visa, but now it's separate location clearance. The assumptions may be wrong and the figures should be wrong. If you still use these figures and then you apply for funding, and then for the more than $100 million in terms of economic benefits, then that may change as well. They can answer that today. Perhaps they go back and explain things in the paper about the people flow, the vehicular flow, how do they do the calculations about $14.3 billion of economic benefits. They should explain that. Now, Permanent Secretary, you don't have the answer here. Perhaps you can give a written answer, a clear answer. Because you go to the PWSC, election members still have views. But after meeting it, we can provide information. I'd like to know what information members want. 30,000 people and 17,850 vehicles. They want to know how we arrive at that. But for a paper does not mention 14.3 billion benefits. They haven't mentioned that. Now, for vehicles, it's not about cross-boundary. I'm talking about local. Okay, they drop off people and then they return. It's not cross-boundary. Because you talk about cross-boundary data. You talk about the first BCP in Hong Kong, where Hong Kong private cars can go there and then they can return. I'm not talking about cross-boundary. Okay, you know that. Yes, I can give you the information. How about the peak hour, apart from the daily figure? Yes, we have the projections. We can give you the information. And also, I asked about the three categories of residents, of people. Can you give us the figures? Owners, licensed buildings and squatters. Can you give us the figures? They should have the figures. Yes, we have the figures. We should actually we have given data to members. Well, members can block the application at another forum, you know. Okay. Time is running out. We're in the meeting by 6:15. Okay, we'll have a discussion on this. Now, members, do you support the government's proposal of taking this to the PWSC? Also, we have to allow them to go to PWSC to give explanations. Do you agree that they should go to the PWSC? Okay. No other comments? Well, I cannot support that. First, there are certain cases of compensation. Yes, you have doubts. Now, do we support them? So, should we support them so that they go to the PWSC? For application, they have to go through the PWSC. And if it's endorsed to do it, then they can go to FC. Mr. Chairman, I respect you. I'm not a PWSC member, so I'm worried. I have doubts. I don't want it to go to the PWSC. PWSC will not consider our doubts because we're talking about the development. But the application here is not involved with compensation. Compensation has been mentioned in the past in terms of compensation arrangements and packages. In July at FC, it was endorsed. Now we are dealing with compensation cases. We are talking about compensation cases. They are not within this scope. Okay, you can provide the information according to the questions. Yes, we will provide information according to the questions. Okay, we'll have a discussion on this. People do not object to yes. Shouldn't we take a vote? The Chairman, there are a lot of doubts. Well, you can express your stance at the PWSC. We should express our stance here as to whether we support it in terms of taking it to the PWSC. For I myself, I do not favor taking this to the PWSC. Mr. Chairman, do you want to take a vote? Or perhaps you yourself has a feeling you feel that we support it or not in taking it to the PWSC. If you suggest taking it to the PWSC, I want to put on record that I do not support it. Do we have a quorum now? We express a stance of not supporting it. Yes. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Fernando Chang said that he expresses his stance. And then, Mr. Chairman, you can draw a conclusion as to how you handle it. Well, if we put it to the vote, it depends on the number of votes. I think there is no request for voting. Okay, just personal expression of stance. Because I've expressed my stance, I do not support it. I do not support it, said Mr. Leung Kwok-hong. Okay, we agree that they can take it to the PWC. Well, I do not support it. Now, 2 members do not support. That's it, Mr. Chairman. For the members, Mr. Kenneth Chen. Okay, 3. We put this on record. Now, for this funding proposal, it will be discussed at the PWSC at that time. And myself or the Vice Chairman will give a report concerning members' concerns and opinions. We'll give a report to the PWSC. So how many people favor it, how many people are against, we'll report this to the PWSC. Okay, no questions? The last agenda item. Now, before that, I would like to ask members. On the 27th of November at the meeting there, we have 3 agenda items. And for the meeting time, we'll extend it by half an hour. That is from 2:30 to 5 p.m. Any disagreement? The next meeting? No? Okay. Okay. We'll do it accordingly. Now, agenda item 6, tree management. Please invite the official to come in. We have 20 minutes left. First, I'd like to welcome the officials. The name list is here. It's the before members. I will introduce the members. Administration, will you give us an introduction? Who would like to speak? Mr. Chairman, I won't waste my time. The Deputy Secretary will give you the highlights concerning the work of the Tree Management Office, the TMO. So I'd like to introduce members here, my colleagues here. On my side, in assisting in helping me to formulate policy, Ms. Grace Lui. Also, Ms. Kathy PAS for development. She's a professional. She had 20 years of experience for landscape work and also policy making. And she herself has qualifications concerning arboriculture and landscaping and also business administration. And also, behind me, Dr. Chow. In March 2010, we set up the Greening Landscape and Tree Management Office. There were two offices. One is landscaping, the other is tree management. We are talking about tree management, so the head of the TMO is here. He's a doctor. He's a doctorate degree holder on planting. He's also a specialist on plants. He has more than 15 years experience there, and he has had international qualifications. The Deputy Secretary can give an introduction. Please be brief. Please be brief. We only have 20 minutes. Now, first of all, for tree management policy, we take a holistic approach. Now, for upstream, we'll have quality landscaping and we'll choose good species, and then we have good management. And then downstream, we'll monitor the growth of the trees and use professional methods to care for the plants, and we'll ensure the public safety is kept. Now, we take an integrated approach. That means for the departments handling the management of trees and other things, they will be directly responsible for caring for the trees in the areas. That is the division of labor. Now, for TMO, is to monitor the implementation of the policy, and we will provide professional support. We will do the coordination. Now, for the highlights of the work of the TMO is to assess the tree risk. We hope to strengthen our risk management. For tree risk assessment, we have made reference to international practice. There are two stages. First is the area basis. That is, we look at areas where we have high people flow or regular flow. Second stage is tree basis. That is, for people with high people flow, we'll have tree group inspection, look at the problematic trees. Then we'll have individual inspections, examination of the trees. In 2012, we have had 22,566 terms of tree group inspection. And then for more than 5,000 inspection forms, we have examined that. And we use advanced equipment to do the inspection. We use mitigation measures, and we'll spot check the inspection forms, and we'll have site visits to the trees. Now, to upgrade tree management's professional level, we have a professional team at the TMO. and we will step up training for the departments. We provide relevant training for the various departments. For 2010, for the tree courses and programs, etc., more than 17,000 people have taken part in the programs and courses. Of course, we have to solicit expert views. We have an expert panel. We have 10 non-officials. We have plant pathologists, tree experts, forestry professors. They come from Hong Kong, Guangzhou, Australia, Malaysia, and other places. Then the TMO has formulated the good guidelines and will conduct research to give support.
We are starting to set up an inventory of trees, a tree register, where important trees will be registered, and also trees warranting special attention. Now there are 1,030 trees on the tree register. We have also set up a tree failure database where 950 fallen trees have been recorded. The database will help us do analysis so we understand why trees fall. We have also tried to run a tree management information system where information of 400,000 trees have been input. It is also an important work to enhance public education so we can encourage and nurture a culture of love for trees. We hope members of the public can also take part in surveillance of trees in the community. I won't go into the community participation activities. Coming up, we'll enhance the care of OVTs, old and valuable trees. The register of OVTs is to provide priority protection to trees. We designate tree protection zones around OVTs, and also in the Code of Work of the Lands Department, no construction work is allowed within the zone of tree protection. We understand that recently some trees have been affected by the BRR or brown root rot, where trees had to be felled. We have consulted the expert panel so that we can have a more comprehensive management of trees, particularly for those with BRR. And then we'll enhance the tree complaint mechanism and emergency response system. I won't go into that in detail. Just like to reiterate, since there are a big number of trees, tree management departments and the TMO will work to our level best, but we hope the public can take part in tree surveillance and also report problems to us. Thank you. 4 members have registered to ask questions. You might also have to rush to the Finance Committee meeting on the old age living allowance. Only 3 minutes each, because our time is limited. Please be very brief. Kenneth Chan. Yes, I'll be brief, Chairman. In Taipo, Lam Chun, a tree collapsed, leading to 1 fatality and 1 injury. The Lands Department was the responsible department, and it was said that the tree does not belong to the register of OVTs, and that in recent years no complaint about that tree had been received, so there was no checking. In your report, you said that it would be area-based or tree-based. It is part of your policy, but I believe you're also complaint-based. So aren't you too passive? Shouldn't you review your complaint-based culture? Secondly, the Bureau. Do you think that it is an ideal approach for you to have tree management departments? Shouldn't you have an organization directly looking after trees? And my question is about that tree collapse incident. What is the latest stage of investigation? Lands Department. After the Lam Chin accident, the Lands Department thinks that they should follow the present policy. They would look for busy places and to go for the area bases or tree bases to do their checking and monitoring. Given the integrated approach, after looking at the division of labor and resource allocation for departments, we think it's still good to use the integrated approach. And also under the Bureau, there should be the TMO to do policy and coordination work. As for the investigation, yes, the police has told us that they should be able to complete the investigation within a few months. To respond to what Mr. Chen said about the integrated approach, we can give you an example. In the parks, the LCSD will be responsible for upkeeping of park facilities, including the trees. Therefore, the integrated approach is efficient and conducive to resource use. Trees will not be separated from the facilities where they are in and be taken care of by one department. That's the theory. Chairman, actually the PS has said that it seems the Lands Department has admitted that the complaint-based culture is not ideal, and so the Bureau is saying that it still should work with the area bases or tree bases. And that is why I say the integrated approach is not ideal, because it seems every department is doing whatever it thinks fit. Thank you. Wu Chi-wai and then Albert Chan. Thank you, Chair. The integrated approach relies heavily on random checking by departments or checking by departments and for the TMA to do random checking. Departments like the LCSD and AFCD may be the right departments to manage trees because they have the manpower. But then some departments might accord a low priority to tree management, like the Highways Department and the Lands Department, the DSD, the WSD. And my question is, the TMO should look at departments which do not accord a high priority to tree management. You should review the management and manpower, and so that you can oversee their tree management work. You have a small group at the TMO, and you have to rely on other departments to execute the work. Say in a typhoon, you need a big group of people to clear up fallen trees. But you're giving people the impression that the government does not have the ability to do good coordination. People have doubts about your ability to do a good job. I'd like you, therefore, to review your integrated approach to see whether where departments have a low ability to do this, you should actually have the work of tree management of these departments subsumed under you at the TMO. Chairman, I think the most important thing is training. Every department should have enough manpower. The Lands Department is responsible for all land in Hong Kong, and they have a lot of work because there are many trees on our land, and that is why they go for a complaint-based approach. But as I said, training is important. And the integrated approach is also adopted for slope maintenance. That is a very successful job. It is because we have accumulated the experience and expertise is available in every department. So the important thing is training. Albert Chan, and then Ipok Him. When the TMO was set up, I supported it wholeheartedly, and we said that there should be a central coordination organ for looking after trees in Hong Kong, because we can see that there was a lack of structural support. But now I think the TMO is neither here nor there. Many departments are still responsible for tree management within their jurisdiction. There is no coordination among departments. You do not provide one-stop professional management and coordination. So there is poor coordination, there may be the lack of expertise at departments, and therefore we still see accidents. I cannot see your workflow. If I should see a problem with the lands department, we can write to the lands department, and the lands department will ask the AFCD to look at the tree, and a report has to be filed with the lands department, and if necessary, the lands department has to issue a contract. I complained about a tree. Eventually it collapsed because it was not looked after for 3 months. Now that you have the TMO, I thought the framework would be better. Sometimes you have too many professional or civilian staff, but then there are no people who actually work at the site. You don't need to have the passing of documents from one to another for a few times before you act. At the FEHD, it is said that there are 11 levels from the street cleaner to the director of the department, so it's really alarming. How bureaucratic is your administrative structure? The easiest way is to go for professional contracting. Say I'm the TMO, I have the expertise, I can go to the site, I have all the equipment, and I can put my words to act immediately. I want to ask you, if there is a complaint, you send somebody to take a look, then they file a report, and then somebody else has to issue an order. How much time does it take? In your paper, I cannot see a workflow and also what happens between departments. I hope we can revisit the issue because we don't have time today. Please be brief. I'd like to say, if there is an emergency, if a tree may pose hazard to life and limb, then the FSD and the police will immediately arrive on the scene. As for other complaints, relevant departments will handle them. You give me a written reply, please. Let me know the workflow and the time taken. That is in the case of a general complaint. Sometimes we have to write a letter and you wait very long to act. It is not what I have in mind. The bureaucratic structure is still very much duplicated and it lacks efficiency. Chairman, if you have specific cases in mind, if there is a delay in the treatment of trees, please let us know. No, I just want a workflow and a timetable. Please provide it to Mr. Albert Chan. Go back and try to write out a workflow. Yes, we have that from the receipt of a complaint at 1823 call center. We will tackle the complaint. Yes, we want you to write us the workflow. This is a good idea of Mr. Chan's, and you can always try to improve. Don't say that you are already the best, because then you cannot improve. Next one, Ip Kwok Him. Thank you, Chairman. I share the feeling of Mr. Albert Chan. I have had expectation of the TMO, but I am disappointed, I must say, about the work of the TMO. In Lam Chun, there was this accident. And the experts said that even if you had examined the tree with the naked eye, you could have seen that it was sick. But still, these problems are happening. My question is, after the Lam Chun accident, the lands department said that the work would be contracted out. What about government land, which is not leased out, and where traffic is busy on village roads? Could you give an account to the public, please?
Yes, and now the lands department is doing the internal preparation on this aspect, and they hope that in a short time, they hope that they can use external contractors to ease the manpower problem to complete the work. And for the lands department, the director of the lands recently has written to the rural committees and to make an appeal so that in the process, if they discover that certain trees are problems, then with a mechanism, they can make a report. As for the work, the director is doing the preparation. At present, there is no specific timetable. But the director will expedite the work and will cooperate, and we hope that at the shortest period of time, maybe can launch the work. Thank you. Okay, no other questions? Time is running out. We'll wrap up discussion on this item. I'd like to thank you officials for coming. I'd like to thank members' questions. AOB. Any AOB? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
喂，李總。